Chapter 1: The richest man's mother came looking for him. Have you ever thought? In fact, you are not the child of an ordinary family, but a super rich second generation from a wealthy family? An outdoor cafe in the magical city. Su Yang is sitting at a table under an umbrella. In front of him is a woman wearing a long black dress. These days, women who are rich enough to maintain their appearance cannot be seen to be old. The woman in front of Su Yang is like this. The woman in the black dress has a delicate face and a slender waist, which is tightly held in by a black silk belt. She looks like a young, mature woman in her 30s, but judging from her figure, she looks like a mature woman in her 30s or even 40s. And this woman, who makes it impossible to tell her age, claims to be his mother. Su Yang was born into an ordinary family in a rural village in the Jiangnan region. He lost his mother at a young age and was raised by his father alone. However, when he was in junior high school, his father died in a major car accident on the highway, leaving him alone. He always thought he was already an orphan, and today he was actually found by such a mature woman, who also claimed to be his mother. Yanger, apart from some money, I don't have anything else, but I really am your real mother. The woman in the black dress stared at Su Yang with her eyes wide open, her face red, completely unable to control her excitement. Her name is Yang Yingyu, and she is the head of the Shueishan Group, the largest enterprise group in the Demon City, with a volume and output value of over 100 billion. She is known as the Demon City Queen in the Demon City business circles and is extremely legendary. Su Yang had already heard her introduce her identity and still couldn't believe it. My father used to tell me that my mother died when I was very young? He was lying to you. Yang Yingyu raised her jade hand out of control and slammed the table hard. However, upon seeing the surprise in Su Yang's eyes, she quickly regained her dignified and gentle expression. Yang Yingyu's beautiful eyes hid a touch of sadness as she spoke softly. 23 years ago, I married your father in a business marriage, and there was never any affection. When you were 1 year old, I had a quarrel with your father, and he deliberately took my beloved baby boy, that is, you, and left by plane for the Demon City. However, there was a plane crash. Su Yang listened to Yang Yingyu's story and finally understood what had happened that year. It turned out that, because of an argument with her, Dad had angrily taken him away from her, and in order to prevent her from tracing him. After putting the luggage on the plane, Dad took Su Yang and changed to another mode of transportation to leave the city. Coincidentally, the plane had an air crash. Yang Yingyu found some personal effects on the wreckage of the plane that had not been melted by the high temperatures of the explosion, so she always thought that the two of them had been killed. Over the years, she has always blamed herself, thinking that if it wasn't for her, her beloved son would not have been on that flight with his father. And just a few days ago, she received a timed letter that had been deposited in the bank. This was a letter that Su Yang's father had placed in the bank safe before he died, and it would be sent out at a set time. Yang Yingyu then learned that Su Yang and his father had not died that year, but had instead gone into hiding in a village in the Jiangnan region. So, Yang Yingyu found Su Yang, and the current scene unfolded. Su Yang listened in silence, sighing with resignation, his eyes still confused. Are you really my mother? He didn't fully believe what Yang Yingyu had said, because it was just her unilateral words. And over the years, he had become accustomed to living without a mother. After his father died in a car accident, he was even more accustomed to living alone. This sudden appearance of a mother really caught him off guard. Of course it's true. You are my biological child. Yang Yingyu hurriedly said, her voice trembling with emotion, her eyes fluttering with tears, obviously extremely excited. In order to make her son believe her words, she quickly took out a letter from her exquisite bag and handed it over. This is a letter from your father. You can confirm it yourself. Su Yang took it and opened the letter. It was indeed in his father's handwriting, and there was a photo of the two of them together. Zhan Xinyue, hello, Ms. Yang Yingyu, the child's mother. When you read this letter, it means that I may have had an accident and am no longer here. The letter is set to be delivered on our son Su Yang's 22nd birthday. Back then, I took Yang away in a fit of anger with you, and just happened to fake my death in the plane crash. I've actually always felt a bit guilty and remorseful, but I learned through my channels that you have always only cared about Yang and have never cared about my death. I married you because I truly loved you, and I let my elders facilitate that union. But in your eyes, there was never any place for me. So I deliberately took Yang and retreated to a village in the south of the Yangtze. I know this revenge is shameless and selfish, and it has not only hurt you, but also Yang, whose life has been completely changed by my choice. If I really have an accident and am gone, this letter will be sent automatically. After you receive this letter, go find Yang. I'm sorry to you, and I'm even more sorry to Yanger. At least after I'm gone, I can reunite you two, and that's how I can repay you. After reading the letter, Su Yang felt as if he had been directly frozen in place, to the point where he had almost forgotten how to breathe. He never imagined that his own father, who had been so good and loving to him, would actually do such a thing. If Dad hadn't taken him away, he wouldn't have had to live in that cramped bungalow, and he would have received an education at the town or county school. He wouldn't have had to live a life envied by others, and he would have had to work hard to earn money to buy a car and a house and marry a wife. All of this was because of the choices his father made back then, and it completely changed his life into a different form. Did Su Yang resent his father? To be honest, he couldn't say he hated him, but he did feel some resentment. But then he remembered all the good his father had done for him over the years, working hard to provide for his food and education. Sometimes, in order to give him a better life and more pocket money, he would work overtime every night and not come home until late. Or when Su Yang was naughty and got into trouble, he never scolded or hit him excessively, but would patiently reason with him. It can be said that his father fulfilled the responsibilities and duties of a traditional father. So Su Yang couldn't hate his father, but just felt a little resentment. He resents him for giving up a comfortable life as a rich man in the city and running off to the countryside to live a life of hard labor as a recluse. He resents him for depriving him of a mother's love from a young age, and for being teased by his classmates for being an orphan. He resents him for making him, a second-generation rich kid, become just like any other ordinary kid from an ordinary family. Every time he sees someone driving a fancy car with a pretty girl in it, all he can do is feel envious. In short, Su Yang's emotions at this time were very complex, and it was difficult for him to digest so many things at once. Chapter 2, Fate Plays Tricks. Yanger, do you believe your mother now? Yang Yingyu looked at Su Yang nervously and asked tenderly. Su Yang took a deep breath and said in as calm a voice as he could muster, I believe what you're saying, but I need some time to digest all this. He was facing his biological mother for the first time, and his heart was filled with mixed emotions. The term mother was very foreign to him. He probably hadn't even uttered the word since he was a child. Every time there was a parent-teacher meeting at school or something, it was always Dad who came to attend for him. For Su Yang, the term mother would even be a kind of pain. Yanger, can you call me Mom? Yang Yingyu's pair of phoenix eyes stared at Su Yang, waiting for his response with eager anticipation. Su Yang looked up at the beautiful woman in the black dress across from him, opened his mouth with difficulty, and shook his head with his eyes lowered. I'm sorry, I can't say it. Ever since I was little, I've been told that I'm a child without a mother, and I've gotten used to the absence of this person's existence. Su Yang said, pulling the corners of his mouth into an ugly smile, continuing, ever since I was a child, I have been afraid of my classmates and teachers asking about my mother. When I meet other people's mothers on the street, holding their children's hands lovingly, smiling tenderly, I can only hide my envy and sadness on the side of the road. Every year, the holiday I dread the most is Mother's Day. I am afraid to see everyone there sending their blessings to their mothers, while I don't even have a mother. Even after growing up, I thought I had matured and could face the fact that I didn't have a mother. But when playing games and being matched against other players, I still can't help bursting into tears when someone insults my family. Yes, I don't have a mother. My mother died when I was very young. All these trolls don't know how hurtful these words are to a gamer who really doesn't have a mother. Yang Yingyu listened to her son's story, and her eyes trembled more and more violently, and tears welled up in her eyes. Yang Er, it's Mommy who is sorry to you. Her son's words undoubtedly pricked her nerves. She could imagine how her precious son had been getting by all these years. Just as before, if someone mentioned her son's matter, it would cause her excruciating pain. Su Yang saw Yang Yingyu's tears and felt very sad. She shook her head. You can't be blamed for this, only the heavens are to blame for playing tricks on people. Yang Er, Mommy will definitely make up for it in the future, so that you can once again experience Mommy's love for you. Yang Yingyu looked at her son tenderly and lovingly, her throat choking as she said. Forget it, I just want to be alone and calm down for a while. As she spoke, Su Yang stood up. Yanger, where are you going? Yang Yingyu reached out to wipe away her tears, asking nervously and anxiously, and quickly following her to her feet. Go back to where I live, you don't need to come with me, I'll contact you when I've thought it through. Su Yang raised the business card Yang Yingyu had given him earlier and waved it, then turned and left. Yang Yingyu extended her snow-white, slender arm, and froze in midair. In the end, she let it drop, and watched helplessly as her son's dispirited back left. An old residential area on the west side of the city. This is the bachelor apartment that Su Yang rents. Go up the stairs, third floor. take out the key, open the door, enter the room, and close the door. Su-young threw himself heavily onto the sofa and didn't move for a long time. Chapter 3, I'm Your Wife. On an ordinary day, he would be playing games with his old classmates, watching the latest anime, or playing video games with his wife. But at the moment, he was in no mood for any of that. There were just too many bizarre things in this world. He was just an ordinary guy. After his father had passed away, he had used the compensation money from the car accident to finish university. Due to his introverted personality and lack of social skills, he usually just stayed at home in his rented apartment after work. Occasionally, he would play games with his only two old classmates who still kept in touch, go out for a meal, eat skewers, brag about something, and so on. It was a very ordinary life of a social animal. And now, he suddenly learned that his own biological mother was not dead. And she was a billionaire mother worth hundreds of billions of dollars? This is truly bizarre, like daydreaming. As for whether to accept this biological mother who had not been in contact for 21 years, it was not within Su-young's scope of thinking. Because Yang Yingyu was not at fault, it could only be blamed on the will of heaven. Su-young was troubled by how he should get along with this rich mother. After all, it was not so much that Yang Yingyu was his real mother. In fact, for Su-young, the two were more or less like strangers. The only connection they had was the relationship between mother and son, and the same blood flowing in both of them. Therefore, when facing Yang Yingyu, Su-young did not feel any sense of kinship. It was only after confirming that she was his real mother that the image of the mother he had ignored was uncontrollably and increasingly deeply imprinted on his mind. For some inexplicable reason, it made him feel a sense of closeness, as well as a bloodline throb that he had never felt before. In short, it was very complicated, and for a moment he didn't know how to deal with it. Su-young's mind rambled for more than half an hour. He felt a little blood stasis in his body. This is when he rolled over from the sofa and got up. He felt in his pocket for a pack of cigarettes, lit one, and took a deep drag. Then he stared at the wall in silence. He didn't know how long it had been, but it was already evening outside, and night had fallen. The ashtray in front of Su-young was also full of cigarette butts. Knock, knock, knock. Until there was a sudden knock on the door outside the house. This brought Su-young, who was dispersing his thoughts, back to reality. Why is it dark? Su-young looked out of the balcony at the night lights with wandering eyes. His mind came back to full alertness. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking on the door continued. Su-young shook his head and threw the empty cigarette box into the trash can. He got up and turned on the lights in the room first. Then he walked towards the door. Who is it? It's me. A soft and melodious voice came from outside the door. What do you mean it's me? Su-young sounded a little strange, and he didn't have any female friends. He had expected Yang Yingyu to come to the door, but the voice sounded younger, so it definitely wasn't her. Anyway, he opened the door first. Hi. Are you Su-young? Standing in the doorway was a tall, beautiful woman wearing a purple dress with a waistband, smiling and greeting him. And you are? Su-young looked at the stylishly dressed beautiful woman with confusion. She looked to be in her 20s, with a delicate and charming face, chestnut curls hanging behind her ears, a slender waist, and firm, long, snow-white legs in flesh-colored stockings, stepping in a pair of black strappy high heels. Su-young was sure he didn't know her and had never seen her before. According to his social circle, it was simply impossible for such a beautiful and outstandingly elegant beauty to appear. The beautiful woman looked Su-young up and down and giggled, I'm your wife. Chapter 4, My Mom's Beautiful Assistant. Wife? Su-young was stunned, when did I get a wife? The beautiful woman had already slipped in next to him in her high heels, and the fresh fragrance followed. Is this where you live? Su-young didn't notice and was pushed in by the other person, who slipped in and squeezed him on the shoulder. He hurriedly looked back at her. Hey, young lady, how can you break into someone's home? The beautiful woman looked around the room curiously and then stuck out her tongue at him and said, It's your mother who's worried about you, and she asked me to come and check on you. My mother? Su-young was taken aback and suddenly understood that she was referring to Yang Yingyu. Right. The beautiful woman smiled and winked at him before continuing on into the living room. Su-young looked at her slender back, and the long, slender, straight legs beneath her skirt were very attractive. This woman is really familiar with me. He had to close the door first and hurriedly followed her in. Who are you, anyway? The beautiful woman stopped in the living room, turned around and looked at him, winked and said with a smile, "Let me formally introduce myself. My name is Jiang Yao, your mother's assistant." Assistant? Su Yang was a little surprised at the relationship. Then why did you just say that I was your wife? Jiang Yao poked her exquisite and flawless face in front of him, her wide eyes almost touching Su Yang's face as she teased and laughed. "Young master, you don't really want me to be your wife, do you?" Su Yang looked at her charming smile, and his heart suddenly skipped a beat, and he took a step back unconsciously. He was a social animal otaku. When had he ever had such close contact with such a beautiful woman? "Don't make fun of me." Su Yang was too ashamed to look up at her. "Shy. Just now you called me big sister over and over, didn't you?" Jiang Yao took a step forward, continued to peer at his bright face, and smiled as she leaned in close to his face, staring at his eyes unashamedly. Su Yang smelled the faint body fragrance wafting from her nose, and looked innocent. "I didn't know what to call you just now." Jiang Yao smiled at the corner of her mouth, "Then remember to call me big sister from now on, okay?" "I know." Su Yang really had no way with this shameless girl. Jiang Yao then stroked the fragrant hair, and sat down on the sofa with a satisfied look. Then, in the manner of an older sister, she patted her heaving chest and said, "Actually, I'm an orphan, 4 years older than you. Soon after you disappeared, your mother took me in and raised me. After I grew up and graduated, I worked as an assistant to your mother, and I have been doing so until now. So there is actually nothing wrong with you calling me Yao Yao Jia." Su Yang then roughly understood the relationship between this woman and Yang Yingyu. However, he still hadn't figured out how to get along with Yang Yingyu. Now there was another Yao Yao Jia popping up. It's really a bit of a headache. Su Yang scratched his head, looked at this beautiful woman who came on her own, and said helplessly, "I told her that I wanted to be alone to calm down a bit. Can you go back first? What's there to calm down about? Anchu is your real mother, how can a real son not get along with his real mother? I think you should spend more time with Anchu, so that you can get to know each other better and you can understand how much Anchu loves you." Jiang Yao said with a smile. Chapter 5, Oh, dear. That's easy for you to say. Su Yang pursed his lips and continued, "You'd better go home first." "I'll be fine at home." "Young master, are you trying to get rid of me?" Jiang Yao's eyes were watery, and she changed from her awe-inspiring, unassailable, imperial sisterly manner to the look of a small woman who feels aggrieved. "Everyone has promised Anchu that they will help you relax. I'm just a girl wearing a skirt, and you want to kick me out in the middle of the night. I might even be followed by a drunk, ooh. Stop it." Su Yang was flustered and quickly stopped her from speaking. "If you want to stay, then stay. That's more like it." Jiang Yao's eyebrows opened and her eyes lit up with a smile. If the employees of Shueishan Group saw Dongzhu, who was always aloof and proud in front of everyone, actually cooing like a baby, they would definitely be shocked. "I now understand why your aunt asked you to come find me." Su Yang was also impressed. "Why?" Jiang Yao blinked curiously, crossed her long, slender legs, and elegantly crossed her legs. "Because you have an incredibly thick skin." Su Yang stared at her face and gave a very serious comment. "Thank you." Jiang Yao, however, laughed out loud, giggling and covering her red lips. Su Yang rolled his eyes and sat down on the sofa next to her. However, because Jiang Yao was so familiar, it made it easier for him to get along with her. It didn't feel as uncomfortable as it would with that strange adoptive mother. If his own strange stepmother also whined like Jiang Yao? Su Yang shuddered, and it was better not to think about that image. No stepmother whines to her stepson. "Do you live here alone?" Jiang Yao asked, looking at Su Yang as she saw an ashtray full of cigarette butts on the coffee table. Su Yang nodded casually. "Men just don't know how to live. They leave such a mess and don't even bother to clean it up. And they smoke so much too." Jiang Yao held out her small, delicate hands, picked up the ashtray and a cloth from the side, and wiped the cigarette ash that had scattered on the coffee table. Then she poured it into the trash can. Seeing that she had started tidying up the house, Su Yang hurriedly and apologetically reached out to stop her. "I can do it myself. I'll clean up later." Just now, he had unconsciously smoked half a pack of cigarettes, and the ashes were indeed flying around, landing on the coffee table and the floor. In addition, things were usually placed haphazardly because he was at home alone, so it seemed a bit messy on the coffee table. "What's the point of being polite with your sister?" Jiang Yao pushed Su Yang's hand away and got up, bending down to tidy up the things on the coffee table for him. Her maroon curls fell over her cheeks, hiding half her face. Only a white, tender neck was exposed, with very fair and delicate skin. It seemed that if you looked at her neck, you could feel the soft, bouncing sensation that would make your heart flutter. The spot that Su Yang had just been touched by her small hand was still tingling, so he had to helplessly watch this beautiful woman tidy up his house. This kind of treatment was the first time in his life. Especially since Jiang Yao was still wearing high heels. When she bent over, her leather pants stuck out behind her, and the entire soft curve of her body was concave and convex. Seeing this, Su Yang's heart swayed, and his gaze unconsciously stuck to her. It wasn't until Jiang Yao finished tidying the table that she turned around and noticed him staring straight at her long, slender, straight, silk stocking-clad legs under her skirt. She was suddenly amused and angry, and gave Su Yang a light slap on the back of the head. "Little sly wolf, have you had enough? You just met her and already you're groping her? What will happen in the future?" Chapter 6, The Heir to the Shueshan Group. Su Yang looked at her in embarrassment after receiving a hair pulling for no reason. "I was just looking at where the floor was dirty." "Is Xiaosei Lang shy again? That's cute." Jiang Yao crossed her arms and giggled. "You have the heart but not the guts. That won't do, you're the heir to the Shueshan Group, after all." Su Yang's face became even more unnatural as she stared at him with her soft, seductive eyes, and he quickly got up and said, "I'll go get the vacuum cleaner." Jiang Yao watched as Su Yang slunk away, his face falling, and her lips curling up slightly as she resisted the urge to continue teasing him. It seems that in the future, with the little master around, life won't be so boring. After Su Yang finished tidying up the living room with Jiang Yao came out of the bathroom after washing her hands and asked Su Yang, "Do you have any slippers at home? It's not very convenient for me to wear high heels." "You're still planning to change your shoes? Aren't you going to leave yet?" Su Yang felt a little helpless. But he still went to the small shoe cabinet by the door and took a pair of his own slippers. "I don't have any slippers for girls here, so you can either wear mine or keep wearing high heels." "I'll just wear yours." Jiang Yao sat on the sofa and bent over to untie the black strappy high-heeled sandals on her feet. Su Yang put the slippers by Jiang Yao's feet and took a peek at her changing shoes. A pair of snow-white feet were very pretty, small enough to fit in the hand, with a perfectly curved arch. The toes were naturally curled up, and through the sheer stockings, one could see the reddish-pink henna painted on the toenails. Each one was as crystal clear as a ruby, giving an extraordinarily delicate feeling. Jiang Yao had just put her delicate feet into the oversized slippers, and when she looked up, she noticed Su Yang staring at her feet, and she immediately giggled. "Little guy, why are you so shy?" "What?" Su Yang quickly withdrew his gaze, innocently saying, "I was just checking to see if you were dressed appropriately. Why are you sulking?" In theory, he usually brushes up on various beauties on Douyin, so he has seen countless beauties. But compared to Jiang Yao, those Douyin beauties, even with beauty filters on, are not even half as beautiful as Jiang Yao. Her beauty is even more overwhelming. This made Su Yang, who had not yet come into contact with this level of beauty, unable to help but secretly observe every part of her. Jiang Yao gave him a flirtatious glance with a smile on her lips, her eyebrows and eyes flirtatiously innocent, her moist and slender lips opening and closing as she asked him, "Have you had dinner yet?" Not yet." Su Yang looked at the time and realized it was almost 8 p.m. "I knew you hadn't eaten." Jiang Yao took out her phone and looked at it. Su Yang was about to ask her if she wanted to eat something together and he would make some noodles. Then he heard the sound of knocking on the door again. "Could it be your Aunt Yu?" Su Yang looked at Jiang Yao suddenly. He was a little suspicious that she had called her over. Jiang Yao saw his nervous expression and kicked him lightly with her fragrant and beautiful leg, giggling, "What are you thinking? I had someone bring you dinner." I don't know when she ordered dinner, but it was delivered so quickly. After saying this, Jiang Yao stood up, stepped in her oversized slippers, and walked to the door with a pat-pat-pat sound, opening it. "President Jiang, here's the dinner you ordered. Put it on the table." Su Yang looked curiously and saw a pretty girl in a women's suit carrying a basket of meal boxes walking in. The pretty girl looked weak and feeble, and she should not be a hotel waitress. Chapter 7, How Rich Is My Mom? After the pretty girl left, Su Yang curiously asked Jiang Yao, "Who was that girl?" Jiang Yao opened the lunchbox while looking up and smiling and asked him, "Why? Are you interested in her? Why don't you let her keep you warm tonight? Don't joke around." Su Yang couldn't help laughing. What kind of person did Jiang Yao think he was? Jiang Yao stopped teasing him and said with a smile, "Her name is Xiaoqing, she is my driver and bodyguard." "Bodyguard?" Su Yang was a little surprised. The girl didn't look like she could fight at all. Jiang Yao naturally knew what he was thinking, and made a face at him. Don't you think that Xiaoqing is weak and gentle, but you won't believe that 10 people like you can't beat her? Is she really that good? Su Yang didn't really believe it. Why don't you let Xiaoqing practice with you? She's waiting in the car downstairs. Jiang Yao winked with her soft, charming eyes and encouraged him. Forget it, I don't usually hit women. Su Yang rolled his eyes, but then remembered something. You have a driver and bodyguard waiting downstairs, and you told me before that you were afraid of being followed by drunks? Did I? When did I say that? Jiang Yao blinked her eyes and said cutely. Wasn't the previous weird girl you? Su Yang was completely speechless. How could it be me? Jiang Yao wrinkled her nose, quite a little woman coquettishly innocent, and waved at him, saying, Come over here quickly and eat your dinner first. Su Yang didn't want to argue with her about it. He helped Jiang Yao open the lunchboxes one by one on the table. What kind of dishes are these? Roasted goose, assorted vegetables and soy sauce, deep-fried pork tenderloin, deep-fried tripe, shark's fin with 3 kinds of seafood. Jiang Yao pointed at the boxes and announced the names of the dishes. I'm not sure about your tastes, so I just ordered a few things to get by. Goodness, is this even close to getting by? Su Yang looked at the dishes, which were full of color, aroma, and flavor. Usually, he could eat an entire meal from just one dish. What's the big deal? Jiang Yao looked at him with her bright eyes and continued with a smile. If you go to the Hotel Anchu runs, the chef there can put together a Manchuhan imperial feast with 108 dishes for you. Su Yang was secretly amazed and sat down, eating while curiously continuing to ask Jiang Yao, Can you tell me about your Anchu? What do you want to know? Jiang Yao ate with him, his cheeks stuffed and his mouth mumbling. Su Yang thought about it and asked a general question, How rich is she? Because he remembered that Yang Yingyu had mentioned to him at the time that she had nothing but money. Jiang Yao smiled lightly, tilted her fox-like face up and looked at him, making an exaggerated gesture. A lot more than you can imagine. I heard that Shuishan Group has assets of over 100 billion yuan, right? Su Yang said strangely. After seeing so many local tyrants on the internet, I don't feel like 100 billion is unimaginably huge. That's just for people on the surface to see. Anyway, it's not listed, so there's no need to disclose financial reports, and in reality it's much more than that. Jiang Yao thought for a moment and continued to give him examples. Let me put it this way, Anchu's assets have long since formed a closed loop. In this city of Shanghai, as long as you don't spend your money in other cities, she can collect it back from all walks of life. So, theoretically, your mother owns nearly half of the wealth of the city of Shanghai. Is this so outrageous? Su Yang was a little dumbfounded. So I'm not just a simple super rich second generation, but a prince of the city of Shanghai? Chapter 8, Crying in the Quiet of the Night. In the future, Anchu will tell you in detail, you don't need to understand the company's affairs so quickly yet. Jiang Yao's fair and delicate face wore a charming smile. Okay. Su Yang could hardly imagine just how powerful her family was. Shermao Shishan Villa in the demon capital. This is the only villa in the entire city that has a view of 3 mountains and a lake. It has a floor area of 1,840 square meters and is built on a plot of 26,640 square meters, surrounding Yuehu Lake. Connected by bridges, each house faces the water, and the island faces the island, making it a true island villa. At this moment, Yang Yingyu, known in the business world as the Queen of the Devil's City, is sitting in a hanging chair on the second-floor balcony, staring at the photo of Su Yang in her hands and lost in thought. Only mothers who have had children will know that their son is their heart's delight. Because a son is born from the body of his mother, he is a part of her life. So during the previous 21 years since Su Yang disappeared, Yang Yingyu had always felt that a piece of her heart was missing, and her life was no longer complete. Every time it got late at night and quiet, her heart would ache terribly. And tonight, this 21-year-old pain suddenly disappeared without a trace. Yang Yingyu then realized that she had not been sick before, but had found the piece of her heart that had been missing for many years, and her heart was finally complete. My dear, I miss you so much. Yang Yingyu extended her snow-white hand and gently touched the photo, never taking her eyes off Su Yang. Her eyes were tender and watery, so gentle that they were mesmerizing. At this moment, there was not a trace of the cold and domineering Shanghai Ice Queen left in her. There was only the infinite tenderness hidden by her longing for her son. Until a Rolls-Royce slowly pulled into the manor. This made Yang Yingyu take her eyes off the photo and look up and down the balcony. It was Yao Yao's car, and she was back from her precious son? Sure enough, Yang Yingyu didn't have to wait long. A cheerful sound of footsteps came from downstairs. Auntie Yu, I'm home. Jiang Yao's person hadn't arrived yet, but her clear and feminine voice rang out first. Then Yang Yingyu saw Jiang Yao's slender figure, excitedly pushing open the door and running in. She ran so fast, she wasn't afraid of falling. Yang Yingyu smiled elegantly. Jiang Yao pounced over, put her arms around Yang Yingyu's arm, and beamed, Auntie Yu, I saw Yang. Is Yang okay? Yang Yingyu couldn't wait to ask her. No, when I first saw Yang, he was probably still a bit upset, and he smoked a lot. But then I teased him for a while, and he calmed down. Jiang Yao beamed. You have to be careful. Yang Yingyu gave her a gentle slap. Yang just reunited with me, so don't upset him. Auntie Yu, don't worry, I will definitely take good care of our baby. If you are afraid of breaking it by holding it in your hands, then just hold it in your mouth, okay? Jiang Yao twisted her body and assumed the pious posture of a maid welcoming her master. She was really happy now, because Auntie Yu's son was still alive, and Auntie Yu would never cry secretly in the silence of the night anymore. Yang Yingyu poked her white jade forehead with amusement. She still has confidence in Jiang Yao's approach to things. Otherwise, she would not have let her get close to her precious son. Yang Yingyu took Jiang Yao's small hand and placed it in her palm, sighing softly. In the time to come, you will have to continue to step in and help Yang Yer break down his psychological defenses. At least this will allow Yang Yer to face his change in identity peacefully, and more importantly, face me. I don't want there to be any more barriers between us. Chapter 9, It seems that it wasn't a dream. Don't worry, Auntie Yu, I will definitely support our young master well, so just wait until I repay you for loving me as your mother. Jiang Yao smiled and promised. Yang Yingyu gave a soft smile, patted the back of Jiang Yao's hand, and teased, if you do a good job with this, I'll promise you to our little treasure as a wife. After all, Jiang Yao is a trusted person she has cultivated since childhood. As a very protective woman who follows the principle of keeping wealth within the family, she will naturally continue to keep her by her son's side in the future, to be a wise and supportive wife. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yao's soft and charming face suddenly flushed with a rosy hue, and she blushed shyly, saying, Auntie Yu, don't tease me anymore, I'll go take a bath first. After saying this, Jiang Yao quickly got up and slipped away. Yang Yingyu watched her slender back disappear, shook her head with a smile, and returned her gaze to Su Yang In. The photo. Tonight, I can finally sleep peacefully. The next morning, Su Yang woke up from his sleep. It was already past 7 a.m. He opened his eyes and glanced at the wall clock. Then he stared blankly at the ceiling. In a daze, he recalled what had happened yesterday. It suddenly felt a bit unreal. Could it be that what happened yesterday was just a dream? Su Yang muttered doubtfully. Just after he had been lost in thought for a while, the phone on the bedside table suddenly rang with a WeChat notification. Su Yang took it and looked at it, and his heartbeat suddenly quickened slightly. Because the WeChat notification on the phone was from Jiang Yao, who had added him as a friend and exchanged mobile phone numbers with him just before leaving last night. It seems that this was not a dream. Su Yang's heart inexplicably settled a little, and he tapped the WeChat message on the screen with his finger. Jiang Yao, my little master, have you woken up yet? */omega ***. Jiang Yao, did you have insomnia last night? Were you thinking about me and unable to sleep? Su Yang rolled his eyes when he read the two messages and typed, Big sister, can you stop being so self-absorbed? He did have insomnia last night. His mind was full of random thoughts, and he didn't know how long it took before he forced himself to fall asleep. Jiang Yao, Omega, wow, our little master is so domineering, I love it. At the bottom of the message, a selfie was quickly sent. The beautiful Yao Yao had obviously just woken up too. She was wearing a baby doll nightie and sitting on the windowsill, her watery eyes looking at the camera, her mouth smiling, with a touch of lazy sexiness. Su Yang didn't bother to respond to her, but he couldn't help but open the photo, zoom in and out to admire it for a while. Only then did he get up, get dressed, and go to the bathroom to wash up and get ready for work. After graduating from Fudan University this year, he joined a cosmetics brand company as a business development specialist. Compared to his classmates with connections and backgrounds, he naturally belongs to the average level of not good enough for high-level positions but not bad enough for low-level positions. Moreover, in a big city with many universities and a large pool of talent, competition is fierce. Even if he is a top student from Fudan University, it will not make much of a difference. Just like when he had just graduated, Su Yang had also taken the civil service exam with his classmates. As a result, he, a good student who had passed various certificates at school, was not accepted, while several other students who could play games and fail subjects were hired after going through the process. Therefore, in this society, opportunities are reserved for those who are prepared. If you don't have a chance, don't prepare blindly. Chapter 10: Taking Things One Step at a Time. So Su Yang relied on his own crazy resume and interviews, and in the end, luck was pretty good, and he got a job at a cosmetics company with a pretty big asset scale. The boss was still a beautiful woman, and although she hadn't said a word to Su Yang, it was still a pleasure to catch a glimpse of her occasionally. Life could just go on normally. Su Yang washed his face with cool water to clear his head a bit, and muttered to himself as he looked at himself in the mirror. Although he learned yesterday that he also has a rich biological mother. But he still wants to figure out how to get along with this biological mother. He also doesn't know how to face an unfamiliar mother. Moreover, he still has to live his life for now. So, he'll just take things one step at a time. He can't let the sudden appearance of an unfamiliar mother disrupt his original rhythm of life. Thinking this, Su Yang grabbed his wallet and phone, went out to find a place to grab some breakfast, and then took the subway to the company. The residential area where he lives has fairly convenient transportation, and the location was chosen because it is close to the company. Su Yang is 1.87 meters tall and has a slender figure. Standing in the subway car, he also attracts the attention of girls, especially his face, which, without any makeup, still looks clear-cut and his skin is delicate and flawless. Xiaomei, look, there's a handsome guy over there. A young girl in school uniform tugged her companion next to her and exclaimed. You keep your voice down, everyone can hear you. Her companion blushed embarrassedly, but still couldn't help but keep looking at Su Yang. Su Yang smiled to himself, but didn't look at them, pretending not to hear. In the past, he always thought that his handsome face was the result of his father's excellent genes, but when he looked in the mirror this morning, he discovered that his eyes, which seemed to be able to speak and emit electricity, were more like those of the beautiful woman he met yesterday. When he first stepped from school into society and was beaten by reality, Su Yang had also thought that if it didn't work out, he would find a rich woman to support him and not have to work or deal with the complicated interpersonal relationships in society. Now, before Su Yang could put this somewhat shameful thought into action, a rich woman did appear by his side, but it was his own mother. Life is truly like a play, and a play is like life. Reality is always more fantastic than television. Su Yang sighed, and the subway soon arrived at the company stop. Walking out of the subway station, he saw the comprehensive office building of Jinxiu Trading Company, Limited at a glance. Jinxiu Trading has such a magnificent office building in the prime Lujiazui area of Shanghai, which is expensive even by the standards of the city, so it is clear that it is not a simple company. Its predecessor was a cosmetics company founded in Hong Kong, and it is one of the few famous cosmetics manufacturers in China with a long history. After being acquired and developed, the company has become a large beauty and daily chemical group with annual sales of over tens of billions of yuan. Its products cover many fields such as beauty, personal care, home cleaning, and maternal and child care. It is a large professional cosmetics enterprise integrating research, development, production, and sales services. This is where Su Yang works. With his university degree, it is not difficult for him to get a job at such a company. He just has to start from the bottom. Other small and medium-sized companies are happy to give him a better position, but the development prospects are definitely not as good as those of large companies and groups. So when a company picks someone, that person also has to pick the company. This is why many people say that jobs are hard to find. Chapter 11: Jinxiu Trading. Su Yang straightened his clothes and entered the lobby of Jinxiu Trading through the main entrance of the building. It was the peak of the workday, and in front of the building there were fashionable women and good-looking men in OL uniforms coming and going. Su Yang took the elevator directly to the 8th floor, which was the office floor of their department. The pretty young woman at the reception desk in the vase greeted him with a sweet smile. Good morning, Su Yang. I heard that your department head has jumped ship, and you are the one with the best education in your group. The company is planning a large-scale investment promotion event recently, so you might have a chance to be promoted to supervisor. Sister Xiaojia, don't kid around. I've only been working here for less than a few months, and I'm not even in line for the position based on my qualifications. Su Yang smiled and didn't take her words seriously. After all, she had already been beaten up by society. The thing that most affected her mentality was to expect things without authorization, and the results were often completely different from expectations. Therefore, if there is no confirmed fact, don't take it seriously, otherwise it is easy to break the defense. Back at her workstation, Su Yang turned on her computer and, while waiting for it to boot up, looked up at the position furthest in from the window. There was an office there, with a circle of leather sofas and coffee tables. Standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, you could look down on the street below. The view was open and natural, so it was the office of the department head. But now there was no one inside. Usually the supervisor was rarely late, so had he really jumped ship? Su Yang guessed inwardly, but soon shook his head again. What did it matter to him if he jumped ship or not? There were so many people in the group vying for the position, and he was just an ordinary employee with no connections, no background, and no ability to brown-nose. Why would he, who had only recently graduated, be able to become the department head of such a big company? Unauthorized expectations, unauthorized breach of security. Su Yang shook his head to calm his nerves and began his work for the day. After a while, his colleagues in the group also returned to their workstations one after the other, and he could faintly hear them discussing the supervisor's job hopping. They were also saying that team leader So-and-so had already gone to the manager's office to brown-nose. Su Yang could hear the disdain in their tone, but he knew that they didn't really despise this kind of behavior, but because they didn't have the opportunity to brown-nose. This is the way the workplace is. After all, people are not machines and have emotions. When leaders face employees of similar abilities, they will definitely be more willing to promote the one who is slick and can get things done. Therefore, there will never be a shortage of ass-kisser in every workplace. Su Yang is proud and arrogant in character, and he can't do this kind of thing. But it takes a certain kind of person to be able to shamelessly fawn over others, to bow and scrape to curry favor, and to endure being privately mocked by colleagues as an ass-kisser. It's all about survival, and no one wants to be the one who humbles himself to please his leader. Therefore, Su Yang does not look down on those who flatter, it is just a different way of survival that everyone chooses. After a few minutes, the sound of discussion around suddenly stopped. Su Yang curiously raised his head and saw a long-haired OL lady walking towards him. No wonder his colleagues stopped discussing, it turned out to be the president's secretary, Danielle, visiting our department. However, Su Yang was also a little surprised. The president's office of Jinsho Trading is on the top floor, the 26th floor, and as the chief secretary, Danielle also works on the 26th floor and rarely comes down to the departments to inspect. Just as Su Yang was guessing her intentions, Danielle stopped by his workstation, smiling and looking at him. Chapter 12, The President Invites. Su Yang, hello, please put down your work for a moment and follow me upstairs for a meeting. Me? Su Yang couldn't believe his ears and looked at her in disbelief. Colleagues nearby who heard this also looked over with a shocked expression on their faces. What on earth had happened that would cause the head secretary, Danielle, to make a special trip downstairs to invite an ordinary employee from a department to a meeting? Danielle didn't care what others thought, cleared her throat, and continued with a patient smile. It was President Liu who asked me to come, and she is still waiting upstairs. Okay. Su Yang agreed, quickly got up and followed Danielle, walking towards the elevator under the complicated stares of the surrounding colleagues. Along the way, Su Yang wondered why General Manager Liu suddenly wanted to see him and didn't speak to Danielle. After all, he and Danielle rarely had the opportunity to interact with each other in the ordinary course of events, and there were several layers of management in between. He is just an ordinary employee, and he has no contact with President Liu at all. However, Su Yang didn't have anything to worry about. The worst that could happen is that he would be fired. Maybe it was because he learned yesterday that there was a rich woman who was his biological mother? So he felt more confident? Maybe. After a while, Su Yang arrived at the door of the president's office on the 26th floor. Danielle knocked on the door and led Su Yang in one after the other. This was the first time Su Yang had entered the CEO's office, so he took a look around. The first thing that caught his eye was a reception area, and a few steps further in, he could see the beautiful boss sitting behind her desk, Lu Rume. The CEO of Jinsho Trading should be in her 30s, wearing a professional OL suit. Her face was fair and delicate, her eyebrows elegant, her figure exuding the charm of a mature woman, and her eyes were very charming. Sitting opposite Lu Rume was Su Yang's department manager Gao Meichin. Little Yang is here, come, sit down first, let's chat. Gao Meichin stood up, patted Su Yang on the shoulder, and said kindly. Su Yang is not someone who is stage fright, so he politely nodded to Lu Rume who had looked over, and said hello, then followed Gao Meichin's words and sat down in the other chair. Su Yang, right? I saw your employment information, which says you graduated from Fudan University. Lu Rume sat across from him, looking through the information, her curly hair falling over her shoulders as she asked him. She was in her early 30s, mature to the core, with a plump figure. Her thin, sexy red lips exuded a faint sense of temptation, and the corners of her slender eyes contained a trace of charm. Su Yang said with a fake calm, "Yes, I just graduated this year, and my first job is to join our company." Lu Rumei looked at Su Yang intently, and a smile suddenly appeared on her sexy lips. "You don't need to look like you're facing a major enemy. I'm just asking, because I also graduated from Fudan University, and to be honest, I'm still your senior. The boss will naturally have a sense of authority over the employees." Su Yang saw her charming smile, and his slight nervousness immediately dissipated a little. He also laughed and said, "Hello, senior." "Ah, Xia Yang, you are quick to respond." Manager Lu just likes it when people praise her for being young. Gao Meiqin couldn't help but laugh. "You don't like being praised for being young?" Lu Rumei gave her a rather amused look. Obviously the two of them were also very familiar with each other in private. Chapter 13, Some Opportunities Come Suddenly. "Okay, I like it when the young handsome guy calls me sister too." Gao Meiqin covered her mouth and laughed. Lu Rumei gave her a glare and put down the information in her hands. "Let's get down to business." Gao Meiqin stopped smiling and looked at Su Yang and asked, "Yang, you've been at the company for 5 months now, how do you feel?" "Very good. The company is very capable and the working atmosphere is quite good. Apart from some minor problems that are hard to avoid, the overall situation is very good. But if a company says it has no problems, that is the biggest crisis. It means that most people are silent, not telling the truth, and are prone to cheating and deceiving. So having problems is actually a good thing, and it doesn't mean the company is bad." Su Yang responded with a smile. Lu Rumei looked at him with a slightly surprised expression and smiled approvingly. "I didn't think you understood management matters, which makes me feel even more at ease." Su Yang vaguely sensed that his luck was about to change, and pretended to be a little puzzled. "What do you mean, Ms. Lu?" Lu Rumei gave a charming smile. "It's like this, your department head left yesterday for personal reasons, and our company will be hosting a large-scale investment promotion event starting next week, so I want to promote someone from the bottom to replace the position of head of the investment promotion department, because someone who started from the bottom will have a unique perspective on the internal situation of the company. Your performance has also been quite good, and Manager Gao recommended you to me. If you have no objections, after this conversation is over, you will officially assume the position of head of investment promotion." "Of course I have no objections. Since President Lu and Manager Gao think so highly of me, I will definitely do a good job," Su Yang said, and then pretended to be concerned. "But I am currently a business development specialist, so is it too fast to jump to the position of supervisor?" Lu Rumei shook her head. "It's fine. Private companies don't follow processes like this. Our company only looks at ability. If you are capable, you can sit comfortably in the position of supervisor. If you don't do a good job and don't have enough ability, we will make adjustments to you again. Is that acceptable to you?" "Of course I can accept it. I'm satisfied just to have this opportunity to try," Su Yang said, patting his chest. "Some opportunities just come suddenly. Some people will be timid and afraid of not being able to do a good job, while others will face them bravely, solve the difficulties they encounter, and keep moving forward with their achievements." Naturally, Su Yang is not a timid person. Whether he can do a good job or not, at least he will know only if he tries. If he is afraid to even try, he will remain an ordinary person at the bottom for the rest of his life. Lu Rumei's mature face rose with a charming smile, and she nodded with satisfaction. "Then that's settled. Manager Gao will help you with the transition, and I'll send an announcement around the company later to notify you of your promotion to head of investment promotion. If you encounter any difficulties that you can't solve, communicate more with Manager Gao, and if that doesn't work, you can also come to me." "Okay, thank you, President Lu, for giving me the opportunity to try. And thank you, Manager Gao, for trusting me and recommending me. It's up to me to perform. If I don't do a good job, I'll resign of my own accord," Su Yang said earnestly. "Okay, I don't have anything else here, so you guys go ahead." Lu Rumei looked at Su Yang's face and smiled charmingly. Chapter 14, Yang Yingyu appears. Su Yang and Gao Meiqi left the office and couldn't help but take a big breath. "What do you think? Are you feeling the pressure? Young people need to be more courageous. This is all a life experience." Gao Meiqi gave him a smile and patted his shoulder. "Sister Qin, thank you so much." Su Yang's heart warmed. When he first started the job interview, it was Gao Meiqi and the HR department who interviewed him. This time, she even helped him. If it wasn't for Gao Meichin's recommendation among so many people in the company, how could an ordinary investment promotion specialist like him get Lu Rumei's attention? Okay, stop thanking me. Come with me to hand over the work. If you don't do a good job, I'll be embarrassed too. Gao Meichin smiled and pressed the elevator button. Su Yang stopped being pretentious and followed Gao Meichin back to the department floor. When Gao Meichin announced that Su Yang would take over as the investment promotion supervisor, the entire department was surprised and their mouths dropped open. No one expected an employee who had only been with the company for less than half a year to be promoted to supervisor. But then they thought, the investment task is so difficult, the supervisor has jumped ship, and there is so little time. Not only do they have to familiarize themselves with the supervisor's business, but they also have to develop the market. There is a lot of difficulty involved, and this guy Su Yang is probably here to take the blame. Of course, there is also a possibility that this guy has a deep background and has been pretending to be a pig while eating the tiger, or is a relative of a leader who has been arranged to gain experience in the company, which is why he has been promoted so quickly. Anyway, no matter what the situation is, they can't afford to mess with him. So, although the colleagues were envious, they all applauded to congratulate him, feeling quite mixed emotions. After all, Su Yang would be their direct supervisor from now on, and he would be responsible for arranging and distributing the bonus tasks. If your direct supervisor catches you deliberately targeting someone, you won't be able to get away with it. Su Yang didn't have time to care about what they were thinking, and the internal company announcements and notifications had already been sent down. After moving his things to the supervisor's office, he handed over the work of the previous supervisor to Gao Meichin. Su Yang then began to carefully review the large-scale investment promotion event for the following week. He also carefully memorized the introduction of the various series of products of the new brand, otherwise if he was unable to answer when talking to customers, it would seriously affect the customer's doubts about your professionalism and trust. I don't know if it's because I have the genes of the business queen Yang Yingyu flowing through my body, but Su Yang has found that she has a good memory since she could remember things as a child, and she can almost never forget a sight. Gao Meichin secretly nodded when she saw how hard he was working. Although she didn't know why Lu Rumei had chosen Su Yang, she had submitted Su Yang's name along with the team leader list yesterday, with the intention of giving this promising young man a chance. Now it depends on whether he can fully master the work of the supervisor. Gao Meichin is still looking forward to it. After all, this is the handsome young man that she personally recruited in the beginning. He answered the questions very intelligently during the interview. With some training, he will definitely become a good seedling. Meanwhile, in the president's office on the 26th floor, Yang Yingyu and Jiang Yao were sitting on the luxurious sofa in the waiting area, leisurely sipping tea. Lu Rumei, the president of Jinqiu Company, was by their side, personally making tea for them. Chapter 15, You Can Even Pluck the Moon from the Sky. Yang Yingyu, as you heard in the lounge just now, Yang has now been promoted to head of investment promotion at our company, Jinqiu. I really didn't expect that he is actually your son. Lu Rumei looked at Yang Yingyu with interest, and a smile came to her mature face. It's good that you haven't been able to figure out the specific reason for promoting my son, Yang. Yang Yingyu asked with a graceful air. Definitely not. Jinqiu's external information does not indicate any connection with Shueishan Group. Apart from those of us in the know, no one knows that you are the major shareholder of Jinqiu Trading. Lu Rumei said with certainty. It turned out that the two parties had been close friends for many years, and the company also had Yang Yingyu's personal investment. This also shows that if it weren't for Su Yang's relationship with Yang Yingyu, it would be very difficult for an ordinary worker to encounter such an opportunity. That's fine, my younger will work here for now, so take good care of him. If anyone dares to bully my son and make him suffer, I'll come looking for you to settle the score. Yang Yingyu smiled peacefully, but there was a hint of authority and seriousness in her tone. Lu Rumei assured her sincerely, Yingyu, don't worry. Even if your precious son brings down the company, I won't let him suffer the slightest grievance. Yesterday, when I learned that your son is working in our company, it really surprised me. I even held him in my arms back then, so I can be considered his auntie. Yang Yingyu smiled and waved her hand, indicating that she didn't need to be nervous. It's fine that you can think this way. A company is just a company. If my son wants to play, he can just destroy it and build a new one, as long as he can have fun. Jiang Yao smiled and said admiringly, Auntie you really indulge the young master. A company with assets of tens of billions of dollars just lets him play around. What's the big deal? Who says Younger isn't my own son? If he wants the moon in the sky, I'll find a way to get it for him. Yang Yingyu said with a smile, full of love and tenderness. At lunchtime, the company has a cell phone floor that provides free catering. Some colleagues who had no interaction with Su Yang before also greeted him on the way, congratulating him on his promotion and so on. Su Yang also smiled and expressed his gratitude. This is what is meant by the saying, when one person achieves enlightenment, his chickens and dogs also ascend to heaven. Isn't it more or less the same? When you are an ordinary wage earner, no one will pay attention to you or get to know you, but when your status is elevated and you have power, you can attract more attention and attention. This is also considered the norm for people. No one will waste time dealing with socializing that is not useful to oneself, and it is also known as ineffective socializing. After a break after eating, Su Yang continued to browse the materials for the large-scale investment fair. After all, at the moment, he still plans to continue to develop his career at Jinxiu. Both his experience and connections can be used to improve himself with the help of this platform. Moreover, the position of investment promotion manager comes with a generous commission. For every store negotiated by all the teams in the department, he can receive a commission, with no upper limit. Of course, it seems very profitable, but in fact, Su Yang, who used to be an ordinary investment promotion specialist, knows very well that it is not that easy to open a store. It is already very good to be able to open one store a month. The first day as a supervisor passed in the busy checking of information. Chapter 16: Jiang Yao's visit. After getting off work at 5 o'clock, Su Yang took a hot shower, which made him feel a little more energetic. Just as he was getting dressed to go out for dinner, his phone rang. Su Yang glanced at the caller ID, couldn't help but smile, and answered the phone. Hello? Sister Yao? What's up? Yang, aren't you home? I've been knocking on your door for half an hour. Su Yang listened to Jiang Yao's soft and seductive voice, unable to laugh or cry. She walked out of the room, wiping her hair as she said, "Why are you here again?" "I just got off work and am taking a shower. How could I hear you knocking?" "I'm your sister Yao Yao, come and see what's wrong with you." Okay, hold on, I'll come out and open the door." Su Yang hung up the phone, went outside, opened the door, and saw Jiang Yao standing there. She was wearing a Dior ladies suit today, with a pink lining and a floral skirt. Her legs were wrapped in ultra-thin black stockings, and she was wearing a pair of black high heels with red soles, making her look a little more sexy. "Hey! You're actually taking a bath? I thought you were deliberately not opening the door for me." Jiang Yao stared at the bathrobe on him and blinked her beautiful eyes and said, "You're not a tiger, why wouldn't I open the door for you?" Su Yang let Jiang Yao in and looked at her curiously from top to bottom. "You're not just off work too, are you?" "Yes, I just got off work and came over." Jiang Yao walked in with her high heels, as if she knew him well, and stared at him with a smile. Su Yang's heartbeat quickened as he stared at Jiang Yao with delicate makeup, and poured her a glass of water, asking her, "Is there something you came over here for today?" Jiang Yao stroked her maroon curls and winked playfully. "I missed you, so I came over to see you. Is that not allowed?" Su Yang rolled his eyes. "Can you be more pretentious? It's so fake." "Wow, even when our young master rolls his eyes, he's still so handsome." Jiang Yao cupped her hands over her face, looking at him like a flower girl. Su Yang was speechless. "Forget it, sit down for a while, I'll go change first." Su Yang really had no idea what to do with this sister Yao Yao. Leaving her in the living room, he went back to his room to change. With a creak, Jiang Yao suddenly pushed open the door from the outside. Hey, why did you come in?" Su Yang was startled and quickly held his clothes over his lower body. He never imagined that a girl would dare to enter his room, so he didn't even lock the door just now. Jiang Yao looked at Su Yang, who was shirtless and wearing only a pair of shorts, and giggled as she walked in. "I was bored outside, so I came in to see what was going on." "Here, my young master, let your servant help you get dressed." No. Su Yang backed away. "Why not? You are our young master, and you should live a life where you just ask for what you want." Jiang Yao spoke softly, and already she had moved up to Su Yang, reaching out to grab the clothes in his hands. Su Yang was forced up against the wall, with nowhere to retreat. He could only helplessly let her put the clothes on his head. This was the first time in his life that he had enjoyed being dressed by a beautiful woman. The two were so close together that he could smell the gentle body odor drifting off Jiang Yao. And when he changed clothes, he touched Jiang Yao's delicate hands, feeling that her soft hands were cool and delicate. Chapter 17: A Life-Changing Moment. This made Su Yang's heart start beating again for no reason. Finally, Jiang Yao helped him put on his t-shirt. Jiang Yao reached out and patted his chest, smiling, I didn't realize that you looked quite thin, but you still have some muscles. Su Yang was a little embarrassed. You can go out now, right? I can put on my own pants. He was really worried that this woman was going to personally help him put on his pants, and that scene was really not something he could handle. Jiang Yao tilted her head slightly, lifted her eyelid, and winked, smiling, then hug me for a while, and I'll go out. This can't be right? Su Yang looked at Jiang Yao's raised eyes. With her high heels on, her forehead was at the level of her nose tip. At such a close distance, he could feel her slightly warm breath on his chin, and it tickled his heart. Is it impossible, or just that he dares not? Jiang Yao looked at Su Yang with seductive eyes, with a provocative smile at the corner of her mouth. Su Yang's heart hardened, and with a sweeping motion, he took the beautiful woman in front of him into his arms. This was the first time he had held a girl so closely and face to face. Her supple skin and soft waist felt wonderful. Kiki, it seems that you are not afraid of anything. Jiang Yao giggled in his arms, her face flushed with embarrassment, but it revealed her shyness. Su Yang naturally did not notice this scene, because his face was even redder than Jiang Yao's. Unable to bear it anymore, he gently pushed away the plump and fragrant body in his arms. Sister Yao Yao, you can go out now, right? You passed this time. Jiang Yao glanced at him from below, and then turned around with a little smug feeling inside and walked out the door. Su Yang slammed the door shut and locked it. Then he leaned against the door, breathing heavily, as if he had been relieved. He didn't mean that he didn't have feelings for Jiang Yao, nor was he like Jiang Yao, saying that he had the heart but not the courage. Rather, it was because he respected Jiang Yao and didn't want to casually mess with this assistant who had been raised by his mother. Of course, it could also be said that Su Yang had truly not yet adjusted to his current change in identity. After all, so many years of living as an ordinary person had long since accustomed him to his identity as an ordinary person. Many of his inner thoughts, because they were ordinary, were only kept hidden, and he didn't dare to take any actions. 10 minutes later. Su Yang came out of the room, having changed his clothes and with a normal expression on his face. Jiang Yao stood up from the sofa with her long legs and smiled as she took his arm. Let's go, tonight you're all mine. Where are you taking me? Su Yang asked curiously, looking down at the arm she was holding with her soft hands. On a date, Jiang Yao replied with a smile. Su Yang was dragged out the door by Jiang Yao, all the way to a Rolls-Royce Phantom parked downstairs. Jiang Yao opened the car door and pushed him in, then told Xiaoqing in the driver's seat, drive. Yes, President Zhang, Xiaoqing replied crisply and started the Rolls-Royce. Su Yang glanced at the driver sitting in front of them, the same pretty girl who had delivered Jiang Yao's dinner last night, still wearing the same style of lady's suit. Where are we going? Su Yang looked back at Jiang Yao sitting next to him and couldn't help but ask again. You'll find out later. Jiang Yao's snow-white arm rested on the car window, her cheek propped up as she smiled at him. Su Yang didn't pursue the matter when she didn't say anything, and instead looked curiously at the interior of the car. This was the first time in his life that he had ever sat in such a luxurious car. He had to say, it was worthy of being a Rolls-Royce, and it was really comfortable to sit on the soft leather sofa in the back. Chapter 18, Tempting the Young Master's Heart. Yang, what did you do today? You didn't sleep at home all day, did you? Jiang Yao reached out to gather a lock of hair behind her ear and asked him with a wink and a feigned expression of curiosity. Do you think I'm an idiot, sleeping all day? Su Yang gave her a blank look, but also shared her joy with a smile on his face. I went to work today. Have you heard of Jinxiu Trading? Jinxiu? Isn't that the company that ranks among the best in the national cosmetics industry? Jiang Yao asked with a surprised expression on her face, pretending to be dumb. Yes, our supervisor recently quit and there was a vacancy, so I was promoted. Su Yang said with a smile. No way? You just graduated, didn't you? What can you do that makes someone want to hire you? Jiang Yao looked at him with a suspicious expression. Su Yang was angry. How can you say that? Can't people see my potential? It's just that there's no platform for me to show off my potential, otherwise I don't believe I can't make some achievements. Yes, our young master is the best. Jiang Yao couldn't bear to continue teasing him, and said with a smile, I heard that Jinxiu is a good company, and working there for you is also a rare learning opportunity. Su Yang was in a good mood today, and he didn't argue with her. He smiled and said, I also think it's quite rare. Since there is good news today, then tonight I must celebrate with you, and first take you out to eat something delicious. Jiang Yao held up her arms and giggled. The night breeze blew in slowly through the car window, caressing her big chestnut curls. Su Yang looked at Jiang Yao, happy for him, and felt her soft and charming face was so beautiful and moving, and his heart felt warm. In the past, he had been alone in his rented room, with no social life and no entertainment. Basically, every day was just eating, sleeping, commuting to work, and he felt like he was suffering from depression. Although this is basically how adults are, and they have to learn to endure loneliness. It is definitely a very happy thing to have someone who can accompany you and share your happiness and sadness. Su Yang saw a strand of hair blowing onto Jiang Yao's face, and couldn't help reaching out to twist it up behind her crystal white ear. Jiang Yao looked at him with surprise. Yang, you're not falling in love with me, are you? Wow! Sister's charm is still very strong, so quickly she has captured the young master's heart. Su Yang's face flushed, and he didn't know why he had just made such an intimate gesture. He could only grit his teeth and say, "Don't think too much, I just think of you as a friend." Oh, really? Jiang Yao's beautiful eyes looked at Su Yang, obviously not believing him. Su Yang shrugged his shoulders and ignored her. Fortunately, after not long the car stopped in front of a hotel. Is this it? Su Yang leaned out of the car window to take a look. This was a luxury hotel called Wangjiang Pavilion, located on the Bund. You can have dinner here and overlook the gorgeous and bustling night view of both sides of the Huangpu River. Yes, let's get out of the car. Jiang Yao nodded with a smile, twisted her waist and pushed him to go down from the car door on one side. Su Yang curiously surveyed the luxuriously decorated hotel and couldn't help but ask, it should be very expensive here, right? He had naturally heard of this most famous restaurant in the city. He had originally thought that he would treat tonight's dinner as a celebration with Jiang Yao of his promotion and pay rise. But when he thought about the price per person of over 10,000 yuan, he was really a little shocked. Chapter 19 High heels touch the starry sky. What's the big deal about being expensive? This is the restaurant your mother owns that I told you about last night. They don't charge, so I'll just sign the bill, Jiang Yao said, taking his arm. Okay, if it's free, then we should eat. Su Yang didn't want to be a stickler, so he just walked in. Although this was Yang Yingyu's restaurant, since he didn't have any feelings for this strange stepmother, he didn't really feel a sense of ownership. He just felt like he was eating for free. Hey, wait for me, I'm wearing high heels. Jiang Yao stamped her high heels and held onto Su Yang's arm. Su Yang looked back and laughed. Because Jiang Yao's black silk legs were stepping on a pair of black high heels with a red sole, the kind of high heels that he had seen on Douyin, with the letters YSL for Saint Laurent, and the kind of heels that made walking completely impossible. Do you really think it's comfortable for you girls to wear these high heels? And you're not afraid of stepping in dirt? Su Yang said with a smile, looking at her feet. Comfort isn't important, as long as they look good. And these top-of-the-line Saint Laurent heels won't come into contact with the road dust. Do you know why? Jiang Yao pursed her delicate red lips and looked at him with a smile. Why? Don't you guys walk on the road? Su Yang asked, rolling his eyes. Jiang Yao blinked her eyes and laughed softly, because it will only come into contact with the ceiling of the stars. The ceiling of the stars? Su Yang was even more surprised. Jiang Yao stared at him teasingly. Didn't you know that the Rolls-Royce you were just sitting in had a ceiling of stars? Puff. Su Yang almost spit out, he understood now, and with a mixture of anger and laughter, he reached out and pinched her white and plump face. If you don't tease me once, will you die? Yes, I will die. Jiang Yao said softly, her beautiful eyes brimming with tears. Go inside quickly. Su Yang shook his head helplessly, took her delicate hand, and walked slowly towards Wangjiang Pavilion. The hotel was indeed very nicely decorated, looking like a luxurious restaurant from a TV drama series at a dinner party, full of grandeur. Mr. Jiang, you're here. The VIP room is ready. This way please. Not long after entering the door, a woman in a lady's uniform came up to greet them and respectfully led the way. Su Yang curiously glanced at her and saw that her name tag said manager. But then she remembered what Jiang Yao had said, that this Wangjiang Pavilion was owned by her strange biological mother, so it was no surprise. This is equivalent to the boss descending on his own business, so how dare the workers not greet them respectfully? Just as the three of them were walking through the lobby, a man and a woman walked past Su Yang, and the man suddenly let out an exclamation of surprise. Hey, isn't that Su Yang? Su Yang turned around and his brows furrowed. This man was the vice president of the student union when he was in college, and his name was Zhang Longqian. He was a native of Shanghai, and it was said that his family had assets of over 1 billion yuan in the city. However, the two had a deep conflict. The cause of their enmity was a school basketball match, in which Zheng Longqian led a team to play against Su Yang in their class. As a result, this guy was covered by a rebound by Su Yang, and he just cursed Xiao Nima there. Su Yang hates it when someone curses, especially when it's directed at him. In the past, when playing a Higo, he couldn't follow the network cable to K people, but now that he's in the real world, he decisively smashed the basketball hard on his head. Chapter 20, Narrow Road to Enmity. If not for the fact that their teammates were holding them back at the time, they would have definitely fought. After this incident, the two became enemies, and even Su Yang's part-time job at the library was ruined by him. What a narrow road to enmity! Su Yang muttered angrily. Jiang Yao originally thought that Yang had run into a friend, and upon hearing this, she immediately understood the relationship between the two. Her eyes immediately turned cold. Zheng Longqian was originally just surprised to encounter Su Yang here, but when he saw Jiang Yao by his side, his eyes lit up and he flashed a look of amazement. This beauty, in terms of temperament, figure and appearance, completely outshines the little internet celebrity he had hooked up with. Su Yang, who is this beauty? Introduce her to me. Zheng Longqian pulled his female companion over, smiling on his face as he pretended to be familiar with Su Yang. None of your business, get lost. Su Yang gave him no face at all and scolded him coldly. Zheng Longqian suppressed the urge to curse and wanted to make a good impression on the beautiful woman. He walked straight past Su Yang and smiled at Jiang Yao, saying, "Beauty, let's get acquainted. I'm the son of the Longwei group. How about we be friends?" Su Yang stood directly in front of Jiang Yao, blocking his line of sight, and said sternly, "I'll say this again, get the hell out of here." Zheng Longqian had always been flattered by his friends and spoiled by his family. He had never been treated like this before, and he could no longer hold his temper. He pointed his finger at Su Yang and shouted, "What the hell are you? Back when we were at school, I gave the school face and didn't do anything to you. Now that you're out of school, who the hell is going to protect you? Do you believe that I can make it impossible for you to survive in the city with just one word?" Su Yang didn't want to cause trouble for Jiang Yao, but now he couldn't hold back anymore. His eyes flashed with cold light as he prepared to strike. Just then, there was a loud bang. A wine bottle suddenly appeared on Zheng Longqian's head and instantly exploded. The wine was mixed with glass shards and blood, which flowed all over his head. The female internet celebrity with a cone-shaped face next to Zheng Longqian screamed in fear. The guests in the hall all looked over, staring blankly in this direction. Su Yang also looked at Jiang Yao, who was holding the broken bottle mouth, in disbelief. "I never thought that my usually delicate sister Yao would be so ruthless." Jiang Yao looked like a different person, her face cold. "What are you in front of your mother? Yang is my young master, anyone who dares to bully my young master must die." Zheng Longqian also came back from his daze, and cursed with clenched teeth, "Lao Tzu and I." A loud crash. Another red wine bottle exploded directly on Zheng Longqian's head. Su Yang coldly held the red wine bottle and angrily cursed, "What did you say again? I didn't fuck you at school before because I gave the school a little face. Now that I'm in society, who's afraid of a little shit like you?" With all the new and old hatred combined, Su Yang directly gave him all of his words back. Zheng Longqian was so mad that he pounced over, cursing, Xiao Nima." But before he could finish his sentence, Su Yang kicked him, sending him flying. Jiang Yao was still not satisfied, so she grabbed another bottle of red wine and tried to throw it at him. Su Yang stopped her and took the wine from her hand. "Let me do it." He knew that it would be inconvenient for Jiang Yao to do it while she was wearing a skirt, and if she walked over to Zheng Longqian, who was lying on the ground, she would be at a disadvantage. Chapter 21, Your mother can even help you settle things. Bang! There was a loud sound of glass shattering. Zheng Longqian's head was directly hit by 3 bottles of red wine, and his head was covered in a large patch of blood mixed with red wine. Where is the boss? The boss of Wangjiang Pavilion is not yet out, someone is causing trouble here. Zheng Longqian's head was dizzy, and he knew that he could not beat Su Yang now, so he directly started shaking people. He had heard who the person behind Wangjiang Pavilion was, and no one had ever dared to cause trouble in Wangjiang Pavilion. The woman in uniform who had been waiting nearby to take the knife for Jiang Yao at any time, only then stepped forward, reached out to indicate Jiang Yao beside her, and looked at Zheng Longqian with a cold face and said, "This is our boss." Zheng Longqian was directly dumbfounded, and suddenly he remembered a terrible thing. Legend has it that Yang Yingyu, the richest man in the Demon City, has an adopted daughter named Jiang Yao. She is so beautiful that she cannot be desecrated, and she is known as the Demon City Flower. Although his class has not yet had the opportunity to meet this flower of the city of demons, at this moment he suddenly realized that the beautiful woman in front of him is that Zhang Yao. Throw him out. Zhang Yao gave Zhang Longqian a disgusted glance and directly commanded the manager. Okay, General Jian. The manager respectfully replied, and a few security guards swarmed over at the wave of his hand, directly picking up the still confused Zhang Longqian and throwing him out the door. His female internet celebrity companion looked at this scene stupidly, and only then seemed to react, rushing out after them. Su Yan looked towards the door and only then noticed the figure of Zhang Yao's bodyguard Shaoqing. He didn't know when she had followed in, hiding in the shadows. Yang wiped his hands and let's go eat. Zhang Yao handed over a hot towel with a smile, and spoke softly to Su Yang. Su Yang stared at Zhang Yao, smiling, and said, Sister Yao Yao, I didn't think you could fight either. Zhang Yao was afraid that he would think she was rude, so she turned her body with a guilty conscience and said with a slightly red face, I can't fight at all. Su Yang really looked up to Zhang Yao, wiped the red wine stains on his hands, and then smiled as he took her hand. Let's go eat first, don't let a fly ruin our mood. Okay. Zhang Yao's pretty face broke into a smile as she took his arm and walked towards the VIP room. The female manager hurriedly caught up with them after apologizing to the customers in the hall and asking the waiters to send a bottle of good wine to each table as an apology. Naturally, the customers didn't mind getting involved and just watched the fun. But when they thought back to the scene of the red wine bottles bursting one after the other, they couldn't help but feel a little chill. That beautiful woman was really ruthless. And they wondered who the man was who was accompanying her. In the VIP room. After Su Yang and Zhang Yao had finished ordering, they were the only two people left sitting around the table. Sister Yao, what just happened? It's not going to cause you any trouble, is it? Su Yang, now that he had calmed down, still wanted to know how to resolve the situation. After all, they were both adults, and naturally they didn't really think that just because they had gotten into a fight on impulse, it would be like nothing happened. Zhang Yao saw his serious expression and burst out laughing. Where would there be any trouble? Your mother's energy is beyond your imagination. Yang, you must remember one thing, in this city, you don't need to tolerate anything or anyone. Your mother can help you settle everything. That's good. Su Yang saw how carefree she sounded and felt a sigh of relief. Although he still didn't understand how powerful his strange adoptive mother was, since Zhang Yao had said so, there was no need for him to ask any more questions. Chapter 22, The World as Enemy. Yang, what did that guy do to offend you? I could see that you were very impatient with him as soon as you saw him. Zhang Yao asked curiously with her beautiful eyes narrowed. Su Yang smiled indifferently and told her how he had a grudge with Zhang Longqian. Afterwards, he casually said, that's in the past, let it go. Anyway, it was quite a fight just now with new and old hatred. Young master, you can just ignore it. But we won't let it go. Not only can't she stand it, your mother will go crazy. Zhang Yao gritted her teeth inwardly, but on the surface she flicked her ear-length hair and nodded with a smile. Well, that's a scumbag, just ignore him. It wasn't long before Zhang Yao's dishes were served one after the other. Deep-sea scallops, turbot, roast squab, braised sea cucumber with sakura shrimp, codfish, lobster risotto, abalone puff, and smoked salmon. Each dish is a signature of the restaurant, and they all look delicious. Su Yang is full of food, and he keeps praising the restaurant, saying that the food is really good. Eat slowly, no one is going to take it away from you. Zhang Yao busily took out a napkin and held out her snow-white fingertips to wipe his mouth. Meanwhile, on the other side, at the Shimao Shishan Zhuang Garden in Shanghai, Yang Yingyu had already received a call from Shaoqing reporting to her. After hanging up the phone, Yang Yingyu's expression was very serious, and a cold aura filled her entire body. She directly dialed a phone number. Seal off all Longwei industrial projects immediately, contact the banks to cut off all their loans and collect the debts. I want Longwei Industrial to go bankrupt within 3 days. Yang Yingyu's noble phoenix eyes flashed with a coldness as she imperiously commanded into the phone. No problem, leave it to me. The person on the other end didn't ask any questions, just agreed and hung up. For companies like Longwei Industrial Group, which are involved in entities in real estate, all of them have an alarming debt ratio. They rely on the physical assets and land under their names to obtain bank loans as collateral to advance the establishment of preliminary projects. Then they brag and advertise to investors and buyers, receive advance payments in advance, and then proceed with the later construction of the project. Then they continue to obtain bank loans as collateral, constantly making money without doing any work. This kind of tactic is very common in the real estate industry, and it can easily leverage more than 3 times the cost of funds. As long as a set of processes is completed, huge profits can be easily earned at low cost. However, in order for the project to progress smoothly, every link needs to be secured to ensure success. Therefore, almost all entities have illegal operations. As long as someone investigates, they can find a bunch of problems. If any link breaks, the company is not far from collapse. Yang Yingyu was really angry this time. Su Yang was her heart's desire. She herself can't wait to hold him in her hands and spoil him. How dare someone bully him this time? The frosty-faced queen of Shanghai can only soften her gaze when she looks at her son's photo frame on the bedside table. After 21 years apart, the mother and son are reunited. She already feels guilty that she wasn't there for her son during this most important stage of his life. So naturally, she can't stand anyone messing with her precious little boy. My son, no one can bully him. If you are the enemy of the world, then I will be the enemy of the world. Chapter 23, The Drama Queen Yao Yao. At 10 o'clock at night, Su Yang and Zhang Yao strolled along the Huangpu River. Yang, keep an eye on my back, don't let me bump into anyone. Zhang Yao turned around, walking backwards in front of Su Yang. Her soft and pretty face was very charming against the backdrop of the street lamp. Su Yang looked at her helplessly, saying, "You're not afraid of falling, and you're not walking properly." Zhang Yao smiled, holding her bag with both hands behind her back, and stepping back in her Saint Laurent high heels. She said, "I'm walking with the wind, so if the evening breeze blows past me and then to you, it's like we're embracing." Su Yang exaggeratedly took a deep breath, laughing, "The wind really carries the scent of you." Zhang Yao almost laughed out loud. Looking at Su Yang's deep and penetrating eyes, the evening wind blew her hair behind her head up to the side of her face. She giggled coquettishly, "Does it smell good?" "Smell good." Su Yang laughed, "It has a seafood smell, I like the smell of the sea." "Bah! The seafood smell comes from the river, all I smell is fragrance." Zhang Yao spat lightly and pouted at him coquettishly. Su Yang laughed, and suddenly saw her accidentally step on the gap between the floor tiles and her high heels. "Be careful." "Ah!" Zhang Yao's thin Saint Laurent heels were indeed stuck on it, and with a faltering step, she fell to one side. Su Yang took a step forward, put his arm around her waist, and held Zhang Yao's plump and feminine body tightly in his arms. "Luckily, you're here." Zhang Yao looked down and tidied her messy hair, her eyes full of mischief as she pretended to be embarrassed and looked up at him. "You did that on purpose, didn't you?" Su Yang said with a smile, wondering why this situation felt a bit like something out of an idol drama. "No, I couldn't see the road behind me, and you didn't warn me." Zhang Yao punched him in the chest with her little fist. "Stand still, I'll help you pull the heel out." Su Yang didn't argue with her, and after she had stood still, he bent down. Oh, Zhang Yao supported Su Yang's shoulders, her expression dancing with the mischievousness of having her way. And Su Yang had already reached out and grasped her exquisite Saint Laurent high heels. Zhang Yao's feet should be very small, probably about a size 36, and they were easy to hold in the palm of your hand. The upper of the black high heels with a red sole revealed the instep of her feet wrapped in black silk, and the touch was delicate and soft. Su Yang couldn't help but feel his heart pounding. He quickly suppressed his distracting thoughts, put his hands through the soles of the shoes and grasped the instep, pulling up hard and finally getting the stuck heel out. "I told you before that these high heels are not durable. You see, flat shoes like mine are better, as they make walking on flat ground feel like walking on air." Su Yang stood up and said, "Don't you think they're pretty?" Zhang Yao gave him a playful face. Yes, they look great, but I'm afraid the leather heels will rub my shoulders." Su Yang happily teased her a bit. "Little rascal." Zhang Yao gave him a flirtatious glance, moved her foot, but suddenly frowned. "Yang, I think I sprained my foot." "No way?" Su Yang looked doubtful. "Really?" Zhang Yao looked at him pitifully. "What should we do?" Su Yang asked helplessly. Zhang Yao rolled her eyes and giggled. "You carry me back. I really owe you." Su Yang rolled his eyes in exasperation and bent down again in front of Zhang Yao with his back to her. Chapter 24, Setting Off Back to the Palace. A little lower, people are wearing skirts. Zhang Yao is wearing a Dior lady's knee-length skirt, and she really can't cross her legs too widely, or she'll show too much. Su Yang naturally knows this as well, so he can only continue to squat down. Zhang Yao then giggled, wrapped her arms around his neck, kissed him on the ear, and put her legs around his waist. "Little Yangzi, we can set off back to the palace now." Get lost, call the king. Su Yang patted her leather drum and stood up, carrying her fragrant and soft body. Oh, the king is so fierce, I'm scared. Jiang Yao smiled and perched on his shoulder, quietly making a victory sign. You're just waiting to be slapped by me. Su Yang supported her two black silk legs and walked towards the Rolls-Royce parked in front. Yang, I find that you can be quite manly sometimes. Jiang Yao said with a bright smile. Don't provoke me, my heart is as hard as a stone by the roadside, long ago sealed with concrete. Su Yang said with a scoff. Jiang Yao laughed heartlessly. Yang, have you been hurt by love? No, I just feel that love is fake the older I get. Su Yang said with a look that had seen through the world. Nonsense, how old are you? I'm still believing in love, even though I'm 4 years older than you. Jiang Yao's pretty little hand gently tugged at his ear. Su Yang squirmed a little, tickled, and twisted his neck. I'll tell you a story. I had a classmate in college who chased after a girl for 2 years. One night it rained, and the girl posted on her moments that she wanted to drink yogurt. As a result, my classmate saw it and ran to buy yogurt and delivered it to the bottom of her dormitory building, telling her to come down and get it. Do you know what happened afterwards? Jiang Yao was intrigued and asked curiously, what happened? Su Yang pondered over the wording and continued. Later, the girl replied to him that they were playing truth or dare and she had lost. Then her roommates told her to post a circle of friends that was only visible to my classmate to see if his dog-licking friend would come. No way. Are there really girls like that? Jiang Yao said in surprise. There's something even more outrageous. My classmate even said that the girl must be testing him, and he kept chasing after her. Don't you think he's like a dog? Su Yang laughed. This girl is so disrespectful. Jiang Yao cursed, but then suddenly seemed to come to her senses. She blinked and said, this classmate couldn't be you, could it? Get lost, I would never be a dog licker. Su Yang gave her a little tap on the drum and laughed. I've just seen so many of these things that I feel so carefree. It's really tiring to always cater to a girl, so it's better not to believe in love and just make money to invest in yourself. Jiang Yao, however, seemed convinced that the classmate was him, and patted his head to comfort him. Yang, don't be sad, it's that girl who doesn't deserve you. I already said it wasn't me. Su Yang refused to take the blame for his classmate, and angrily said. I know, don't be angry. I'm not angry, it's not me, why would I be angry? Right, you're not angry. Damn it. You obviously think it's me. It was almost 11 at night. Su Yang then returned to the apartment building where he was staying. Goodbye, Su Yang, don't think about me again and lose sleep over it. Chapter 25, This woman really knows no bounds. Jiang Yao, without knowing what she had slipped into Su Yang's pocket when he got out of the car, waved her hand and beamed as she walked away. Su Yang watched the Rolls-Royce disappear from view, and curiously reached into his pocket. Holy shit! A soft mass of black stockings appeared in his hand. At that moment, Su Yang's phone also rang with a VIP notification. Jiang Yao, don't be touched, I just took these off today, they're still in their original condition. Don't play too long tonight, go to bed early. Su Yang cursed, get lost. This woman really doesn't know how to behave. Su Yang put the phone away, looked at the black silk that still carried the warmth of her body, and put it in her pocket. I'll wash it for her when I get back. This quality silk must cost at least a few thousand yuan, don't waste it. The second day of being the head of investment promotion. Su Yang returned to the company for work and was notified by the manager Gao Meichin that a meeting of department heads was to be held. Jinxiu Trading planned to hold a large-scale investment promotion conference in Jiangnan this weekend, and the work of all departments this week would revolve around investment promotion. The provincial capital of Jiangnan is Linnan, which is also one of the central cities of the Yangtze River Delta. Including Linnan, there are a total of 11 prefecture-level cities. In Su Yang's preliminary investment promotion plan, the entire investment promotion department will be divided into 11 teams, each team responsible for a prefecture-level city. Jinxiu Trading has many regular customers, and each team will be given customer information for each region, all of whom have previously cooperated with Jinxiu. This week, the teams will first contact potential customers by phone, and next week the entire investment promotion department will be dispatched to Jiangnan on business trips. Each team will interview potential customers at their doorsteps and explore new customer groups in the area. After Gao Meichin and Su Yang had finished describing their plan, Gao nodded and said, Jinxiu is taking the investment promotion of new brands very seriously this time. President Liu will be going on a business trip to Jiangnan with us, and there are certain requirements for the signing task indicators. So I hope everyone can fully complete this investment promotion, especially Su Yang. You have a very heavy task." Su Yang nodded. Detailed information and planning can only improve the success rate of a plan, but the final result often depends solely on the executor's execution. This is what is known as armchair generalship. Many people can talk a good game, but when it comes to actual implementation, it is fraught with variables. If the investment promotion can achieve its target this time, at least Su Yang will be able to secure his position as head of investment promotion. After the meeting, Su Yang returned to his department and began to divide up the regions among the investment promotion specialists in each team. Having worked here for almost half a year, Su Yang had a general understanding of the abilities of these colleagues, and even knew some of their habits better than their leaders. After all, many people are too lazy to pretend in front of their colleagues, and their true natures will show through with the schedule. Su Yang's key work arrangement was naturally in the provincial capital Linen. It was only during lunch that Su Yang had time to take out his phone and reply to the message Jiang Yao had sent him in the morning. "Jiang Yao, Yang, I hope last night's shower didn't affect your work today." "Su Yang, screw you. I did you a favor and hand-washed your stockings. Come by sometime to pick them up, otherwise I'll feel like a pervert with a pair of stockings drying on my balcony." Jiang Yao, oh, you really washed them? You didn't just want to get rid of the evidence after you washed them, did you? Su Yang, do I need to wash your stockings? Is my game character's underwear stale, or is my wife's character's underwear ugly? Jiang Yao, Omega, oh, I see, so you're hinting that I should send you some original underwear. Su Yang, get out of here. Chapter 26, Resentful Old Schoolmates. This woman really never forgets to tease herself every moment. However, it is also due to Jiang Yao's personality that although he has not known him for long, he is familiar with him as if they have been friends for many years. Su Yang shook his head and opened another WeChat group called Dead House Group. This WeChat group is a group that Su Yang has created with two old schoolmates who are good friends. They usually call for people here on weekends to play games. Su Yang at Oz Jian, at Liao Zhenghao, you two have been diving every day lately, what the hell are you up to? The two people he had are his roommates from college, and they haven't lost touch since graduation. What's more, they both work in Shanghai, so they usually hang out when they're free, eating skewers and drinking beer. Although Su Yang used to be an orphan, he has two close friends because they share similar interests. "Oh Zijian, what else can I do if I don't dive? I go to work every day, come home, play games in my rented room, and go to work again. It's a routine without passion. Liao Zhenghao, when I was at school, I thought I could make a name for myself, and I looked forward to entering society early to fulfill my ambitions and make a lot of money. But I never imagined that I would just be a social animal, working 996 every day, and I don't know when I'll get ahead." Su Yang couldn't help but sigh when he heard what the two disgruntled classmates had to say. This is the life of an ordinary person. Su Yang at Liao Zhenghao, rat, at least you have a girlfriend, while people like Shuttlecock are still single. This Liao Zhenghao is the dog licker who delivered yogurt on a rainy night, as Su Yang mentioned to Jiang Yao before. Liao Zhenghao. Oh Zijian, exactly. A love that started in college and lasted until graduation, how enviable. Liao Zhenghao, embarrassed, you probably don't know yet. I broke up a few days ago. Su Yang is a little surprised, what's going on? Didn't you guys say you were going to get married after graduation? Oh Zijian, yeah, last time we went out for skewers, I heard you say you were going to save up for marriage. Liao Zhenghao, ugh, it's a long story. Guys, how about we meet for dinner today? I'll rant and rave to you. Oh Zijian, sure, is Yangzi free? Su Yan thought for a moment, then typed, I'm fine too, where shall we meet? Liao Zhenghao, the usual place. Su Yang, okay, see you there. Oh Zijian, okay. Time passed quickly, and it was time to go home. Su Yang left the office and headed straight for the place where he had arranged to meet with his two disgruntled old classmates. Half an hour later, Su Yang walked into a Shanshan hot pot restaurant. This is the old place where Su Yang and his two disgruntled classmates used to meet for dinner. Because Liao Zhenghao is from Shanshan, he likes hot pot the most, and when they were in college, they always took him and Ozijin to Shanshan hot pot. After eating there many times, they found that this place was the most authentic, so they made it their regular meeting place for dinner. It was only a little after 6 p.m. Su Yang first found a table near the floor-to-ceiling windows and sat down. The view from here was better, and he could see the young ladies in short skirts passing by outside. It seems that some habits are still hard to change. Su Yang said to himself with a smile. This way of finding a table was still the habit from the past when he had dinner with those two grumpy classmates. The point was naturally to see the young ladies passing by. Chapter 27: The Legendary She-Devil. However, now Su Yang's aesthetic sense has been greatly influenced by Jiang Yao, and he is generally not interested in looking at ordinary young ladies. And just now, after entering, he still habitually found a seat like this. Su Yang shook his head in exasperation, took out his phone, and sent a message in the group of dead house owners. These two grumpy seeds are already on their way here. They have also just finished work, but their journey is farther than his. Su Yang asked the waiter to bring the soup base and take orders first, and also to bring 2 cases of beer. After all, since Rat had just broken up with someone, he must have a lot of sad stories to tell, and he couldn't do that without alcohol. After Su Yang had finished ordering, he saw that Jiang Yao had sent him a message again. Jiang Yao, what are you doing, Yang? Are you off work yet? Do you want to go out for dinner together? Omega. Su Yang typed a reply, I'm meeting up with some classmates tonight, maybe some other time. Jiang Yao, oh no, Carrot, so I'm not as important to you as your classmates. Su Yang, don't be silly, this is my roommate from university. One of them is the one who told you about licking dog last night. He broke up with his girlfriend, so I'm here to comfort him tonight. Jiang Yao, what? So licking dog really wasn't you? Su Yang, get out. I've been saying it's not me the whole time. Fine, you're the one who thinks so every day. Jiang Yao, I just don't think you're the type to lick, otherwise you wouldn't be ignoring the beautiful girl next to you. Su Yang, I can lick you to death, do you believe that? Jiang Yao, come and try. Su Yang, let's try it. Q. Jiang Yao, if you're so capable, post your location. Asterisk. Su Yang, I'll post it. Winky face. He decisively posted his location and continued typing, if you don't come, you're a dog. Jiang Yao, I'm not a dog, I'm a little white tiger. */omega \**. Su Yang, #miss, don't drive, it's dangerous. Jiang Yao, what are you thinking? She's a tiger. Omega *. Su Yang, holy cow. So you're the legendary tigress. You're scary. Jiang Yao, scared, aren't you? The tigress will bite you to death. Omega smiley face O. Su Yang and Jiang Yao chatted away, waiting for the hot pot soup base and ingredients to arrive. Zijian and Liao Zhanghao also arrived at the hot pot restaurant one after the other. Yangzi picked a good location. Zijian gave a thumbs up as soon as he came up. I came early, so I picked a random seat. Su Yang smiled. Eating hot pot with the air conditioning on is just great. Liao Zhanghao looked at the red-hot soup base and his mouth watered. Hurry up and sit down, let's get started. Su Yang began to add ingredients to the soup. Zijian poured them a beer and glanced at Su Yang, exclaiming, Yangzi, you look flushed, have you recently become rich? Liao Zhanghao also glanced at Su Yang a few times, he really felt that something was different, either he had been promoted or he had a girlfriend. Su Yang laughed and scolded, I have indeed been promoted, so I'll treat you to dinner, okay? Zijian asked curiously, a promotion? Did he become a team leader? Su Yang didn't hide it, 2 days ago, our supervisor quit. The leader is quite optimistic about me, and asked me to take over the supervisor's position, which is a promotion of 2 levels. Liao Zhanghao's eyes widened, holy shit. Supervisor? That's the supervisor of Jinxiu. That's awesome. Zijian was also surprised, Yangzi, you're really something, you've only been here for less than half a year and you've already been promoted to supervisor, so your benefits will at least be several times more than ours. Chapter 28, The Heartache of an Old Classmate. I just got really lucky. Su Yang rolled his eyes and simply changed the subject, Rat, tell me about you first. How did you break up? He remembered that Rat's girlfriend had been licking since high school, and she didn't get together until her sophomore year. Although her appearance was not considered high-end, she was considered above average. She looked quite delicate and cute, but she was a bit of a little fairy. But this was Liao Zhanghao's first love, whom he had liked since high school, so Su Yang naturally didn't want to say anything in front of him. Liao Zhanghao didn't care about his affairs when he heard Su Yang mention this, and sighed and took a sip of beer. What other reason could there be? It's just that she doesn't like that I'm poor. Poor? Zijian was a little surprised, Su Chenner shouldn't be that kind of girl, right? Otherwise, she wouldn't have agreed to go out with you in the first place. People can change. Liao Zhenghao ate some mutton in silence, then gulped down some beer before continuing. A while ago, she said her parents told her to come home for a visit. I didn't pay it much mind, but after she got back, she broke up with me. I pressed her for an explanation, and she didn't hide it from me. It turned out that her parents had arranged a blind date for her back home. The man's family runs a business, owns 2 restaurants, drives a Mercedes, and promised Chenner that if she married him, he would give her a BMW and pay her family 300,000 yuan in marriage gifts. So Su Chenner just agreed? Oh, Zijian asked, his eyes wide. She didn't say yes directly, but asked me if I could fulfill the conditions that man had mentioned. Liao Zhenghao said dejectedly. So what did you say? Su Yang couldn't help but ask. I asked if I could have 5 years, but she said that was too long, that she couldn't wait that long, that she would be an old maid by then, and that no one could guarantee that I would be able to fulfill all those promises by then. She wanted to see the results right away, and she wanted to know just how important she was to me. Liao Zhenghao continued drinking his beer and said, but as you all know, my family is just an ordinary family. A BMW costs 300,000 yuan, and if I want to pay that now, I'd have to sell the house. But if my family sells the house, where will my parents live? Su Yang asked again, is there no room for maneuver at all? No. Liao Zhenghao shook his head. In fact, after graduation, I also saw through some things. Chenner bragged to me every day that her best friend had met a boyfriend, who took her out every day to play and go on trips, and she didn't even have to go to work. She wore designer clothes and carried designer bags, and she wasn't any less attractive than her best friend, but they had different lives. She worked hard every day, but could only afford to buy cosmetics and skin care products for herself. Su Yang and Zijian listened to his story and could only silently raise their beers and clink them with his, drinking with him. Liao Zhenghao finished the bottle in one go and continued with a bitter smile. From that moment on, I knew she was complaining that I couldn't give her much and that I didn't have any money. But what could I do? If I wanted to marry her, I had to save up to buy a car and a house, and I also had to pay the bride price and throw a wedding banquet. If I spent my salary every day eating and drinking with her, would there be anything left for the future? And with my salary, there wouldn't even be enough left over to buy her designer clothes and bags after all that. So suddenly, I felt very tired. More than 3 years of feelings had just been shattered because of a comparison with her best friend, because of a BMW, and a bride price of 300,000 yuan. Chapter 29. Look, there's a beautiful woman at 9 o'clock. Su Yang hesitated for a moment, but then said, Mouse, if you need money, I can help you out. In fact, he himself didn't think that woman was suitable for Mouse, but he didn't know if Mouse would want to salvage the situation if there was still hope. So, based on their friendship over the past few years, he would still help if he could. Oh, Zijian also patted Liao Zhenghao on the shoulder and said, if it's not too much, I can help too. Liao Zhenghao, however, shook his head with a bitter smile. I know what you guys are thinking, but I've also come to realize that there have long been cracks in this relationship of mine that can never be fixed. My views are no longer the same as Chenner's. What she wants now is something ready-made, something to compare with. Even if we do get married in the future, she'll still find fault with me because I'm not as good as other people's husbands. So I've let go of it and just let it go. Su Yang let out a sigh of relief and said, it's good that you can think this way. In fact, I also think you two are not a good match. But as best friends, it's not good to persuade people to stay together, so I won't say anything bad about your girlfriend. She's your ex-girlfriend now. Liao Zhenghao shook the bottle of beer and laughed. After a hot pot meal, the 2 cases of beer were also emptied. It was already past 8 p.m. Su Yang took the opportunity to go to the bathroom to buy the bill. Although he had just said that he would pay, these 2 often secretly fought with him to buy the bill. In fact, it was because they knew that he had no relatives and would have a harder time in the future, so they took care of him a bit. This was also the reason why Su Yang had just offered to lend him money to help. Sometimes, the relationship between some friends is very clear to everyone. Only those with a truly compatible personality will not lose contact and remain friends after graduation. Basically, there are not many friends like this. The guys dispersed, each going home. Su Yang patted the 2 old classmates. Okay, let's get together again some other time. Liao Zhenghao and Zijian were still relatively sober, so the 3 of them walked together towards the hot pot restaurant. Yangzi, you have the worst drinking tolerance, let's call you a cab and get you to the car first. Liao Zhenghao said, and led the 2 of them towards the roadside. Hey, guys, look at 9 o'clock, there's a super beautiful woman. At that moment, Oz Jian suddenly and furtively tugged at the corner of their clothes, pretending to be serious, but his eyes were constantly squinting in the other direction. Holy shit! She really is a beautiful woman from a wealthy family. It's a Rolls-Royce, isn't it? It's coming from that car, Liao Zhanghao whispered. Both of them were the type of cowards who wanted to look at beautiful women, but were too afraid to be discovered, so they could only squint and peek secretly. Su Yang also looked up curiously at 9 o'clock. Oh my! She really came over? This so-called super beauty is actually Sister Yao Yao in an OL suit. Hey, she's coming over, come over, don't peek, you'll be despised. Liao Zhanghao reported the latest developments at any time. Oz Jian had already collected his cowardly eyes, for fear that the beauty would think him lewd and despise him. Su Yang shook his head with a little smile. Not long ago, he was also one of them. But now. Su Yang directly raised his hand and waved it towards Jiang Yao. Sister Yao Yao, I'm here. I know, I saw you a long time ago. Jiang Yao ran over with a cute smile and took his arm. Liao Zhanghao and Oz Jian were directly dumbfounded. What's going on? Chapter 30. The rich woman is hungry and wants to feed him. Su Yang saw their stunned and resentful expressions and introduced them helplessly. This is my friend, Jiang Yao. Jiang Yao corrected with a graceful manner. Hello, I am Yang's girlfriend. Hello. The two resentful classmates hurriedly replied, too embarrassed to look up. After all, this beauty's aura was too strong, and she didn't feel like someone from the same world. Su Yang also didn't bother arguing with Jiang Yao, and waved to the two grudging students. Guys, I'll go first, let's get together again some other time. Liao Zhanghao and Oz Jian looked at their best friends with disbelief as they were dragged by the beauty and got into the Rolls-Royce parked by the roadside. They were still full of shock until the car had already gone far away. My God! How is this possible? Since when did Yangzi know such a beautiful rich girl? The two disgruntled classmates looked at each other, both thinking that they must have drunk too much. Rat, slap me and see if I'm drunk. Shuttlecock, slap me too and see if I'm drunk. Then, on the roadside, in front of the hot pot restaurant, the two young men, both university graduates, held up their palms and slapped each other in the face. Su Yang had only just got into the car. He was then at crazy by two of his disgruntled classmates from the geek group. Oz Jian at Su Yang, I'm shocked. Yangzi, is that really your girlfriend? Shocked. Liao Zhanghao at Su Yang, Yangzi, where did you meet such a rich and beautiful girlfriend? Shocked. Oz Jian at Su Yang, confess and be lenient, resist and be strict, quickly confess the truth. Liao Zhanghao at Su Yang, I just broke up with someone, and you're showing off in front of me. Is that really appropriate? Su Yang sat in the passenger seat, slightly tipsy, and looked at her phone with a smile. These two big offenders must be really upset. Type a reply, this is a bit complicated to explain. I can only say it's fate. When it's your time, you'll meet the right person. Oz Jian, fate? How could this thing lead to a beautiful, rich woman in a Rolls-Royce Phantom? Liao Zhanghao, a swollen face with a big question mark. Yangzi, I don't believe you. Su Yang, well, that's the truth. If you don't believe me, how about I just take advantage of a rich woman? I don't want to work hard anymore. I'll just hug the rich woman's thigh and cry out I'm hungry, every day, and she'll feed me. Oz Jian, is there really such a young and beautiful rich woman? Are you kidding? Liao Zhanghao, yes, I admit that you are more handsome than us, but can you also introduce rich women to us? It doesn't matter if the appearance is a bit lacking, I don't want to work hard anymore. Su Yang, this is easy, you see a luxury car passing by on the road, just rush over and stop it. If it's a woman inside, you shout mom loudly and see if the rich woman will give you a chance to be filial to your mother. Oz Jian, get lost, you're leading us into a trap. Liao Zhanghao, God, please let it thunder, there's a son who wants to rush a rich woman. Su Yang had a few words with the two complainers, and felt a little dizzy from the phone shaking his head after just finishing drinking. He threw it aside and didn't bother with the two. Yang, are you drunk? Jiang Yao saw Su Yang leaning back in his seat, closing his eyes to rest. She took a pack of wet wipes from her bag, took out a few, and carefully wiped his face. No, I can hold my drink, I don't get drunk that easily, and I can control it, I don't usually get drunk. Su Yang opened his eyes slightly and smiled, smelling the faint, pure body fragrance drifting from Jiang Yao. Chapter 31, Is My Sister Not Worthy? Sister Yao Yao's charming face looked especially beautiful under the city's nightlights. Why are you staring at me? Jiang Yao brushed her hair and looked at him with a sweet smile. Su Yang felt his face heat up and casually found a topic to talk about. Sister Yao Yao, why are you still wearing your uniform? Haven't you gone home yet? It has to be said, Jiang Yao's figure is simply unbeatable, with a tiny waist, a perky butt and long legs. She looks great in any kind of clothing, and her delicate feet, wrapped in ultra-thin black stockings, look stunning in high heels. Jiang Yao sat back down and said with a smile, I went out to dinner with your mother after work, and when I saw it was about time, I came straight here to find you. When Su Yang heard Jiang Yao mention her strange biological mother, her image also appeared in his mind. In fact, he had been quite torn up these past few days. In the past, he had also seen some news online about abducted children being found by their biological parents. At that time, he wondered whether it was the biological parents who were important, or the parents who had raised him who were important. At that time, many netizens said that the kindness of raising a child was greater than the kindness of giving birth to a child. Because the process of raising a child will continue to deepen the affection between the two sides. Now, Su Yang is faced with dealing with this strange mother. There is a full 21 years between him and her, and they have not spent any time together since he was taken away by his father when he was 1 year old. It can be said that the most important part of the process of deepening their relationship is missing between the two. Therefore, now, when Su Yang faces this strange mother, he does not know how to control his emotions and how to get along with her. Anyway, for Su Yang, Yang Yingyu is a stranger in his eyes. He has no idea about her emotions. She also has no idea about his preferences and personality. A real mother and son grow up together from childhood, and in the process, they get to know each other better and their bond grows stronger. But Su Yang and this strange mother of his have missed out on this process, and it is the most important stage of growth in life. How can they bridge the 21-year gap? In short, he is still unable to think of a concrete plan, so he can only take things one step at a time. Yang, are you thinking about your mother? Jiang Yao saw Su Yang in a daze, huddled in his seat, and kicked him lightly with his high heels. No. Su Yang came back to his senses, didn't want to admit it, changed the subject and laughed. By the way, Yao Yao, why did you introduce me to my friends as my girlfriend just now? Jiang Yao suddenly made a pitiful look as if about to cry and stared at him. Is it that I'm not good enough? Su Yang knew she was pretending, but for some reason he didn't want to hurt her. He reached over and took Jiang Yao's cool little hand in his, smiling and saying, Of course she's right for you, absolutely right, the perfect match, a match made in heaven. Jiang Yao tried hard not to laugh, her narrow eyes squinting like a crescent moon. Su Yang, shameless, played with Jiang Yao's delicate hands. Maybe it's because you suddenly dropped in from the sky to see me. I really didn't expect you to come. Jiang Yao laughed and teased. So you licked me when Wei Xin said I was coming, and now you're not licking me? You really treat me like a licker. Su Yang rolled his eyes and glanced at Xiao Qing, who was driving in front of them. Her bodyguard was still there, so it wasn't the time to lick. Chapter 32, The Black Gold Card Given by My Mom. Jiang Yao reached out and pinched him hard, grunting, I knew you were just teasing me. Su Yang shrugged, once you officially become my girlfriend, I'll definitely make you come. Jiang Yao narrowed her eyes and laughed, I'll wait for that day to come. The two of them chatted for a while, and before long, the Rolls-Royce stopped at Su Yang's apartment building. When getting off the car, Jiang Yao held Su Yang back and slipped a bank card into his hand. This is what your mother asked me to give you. The password is your birthday. Su Yang glanced down at the black and gold card lying in the palm of his hand and, after a moment's hesitation, accepted it. Please tell her thank you for me. Su Yang pushed open the car door and got out. Whether this strange mother was feeling guilty or trying to make amends, he had no reason to refuse, otherwise it would seem a bit pretentious. Who doesn't like money? However, the 21-year estrangement between them could not be bridged by money alone. Su Yang returned to his residence, took a shower, and then lay on the bed. He held the heavy metal-looking bank card in his hand. He didn't know how much money was in it. Curious, Su Yang muttered, and directly slipped the bank card into his wallet. He had no intention of using the money now, nor was he particularly interested in knowing how much was in it. It can be said that Su Yang has his own temperament. Before sorting out his relationship with this strange mother, he doesn't want to use her money. Time flew by in the hustle and bustle, and before he knew it, a few days had passed. It was soon next week. When Su Yang returned to the company, he found that several colleagues were gathered together discussing something, exclaiming in amazement. This is big news, the chairman of Longwei Industrial Group and his son were actually arrested and sentenced. I really didn't expect Longwei to collapse so quickly. I heard that the day before yesterday, the entire group's projects were shut down, and multiple projects were suspected of operating illegally and engaging in bribery and pyramid schemes. I also heard that overnight, 2 Longway factories and a construction site were directly closed down, their accounts frozen, and their dealers and suppliers stopped cooperating. The banks also cut off their loans in the name of loan risk, causing Longway Industries' entire capital chain to break. It is said that after this incident spread, the construction site employees caused trouble, suppliers negotiated debt repayment, and buyers of pre-sale properties demanded repayment, which directly drove the father and son of the Longway Group almost crazy. What you are saying is just a small part of it. Zhang Longqian is heard to have committed rape and forcible rape. I guess the details are even more complicated. I think the Longway Group has offended some big shot this time. This is also possible. Otherwise, why has nothing happened before, but it all exploded at this time? Su Yan listened to the conversations of his colleagues and probably knew what had happened. A daze flashed in his eyes. The Longway Group father and son? Isn't it Zhang Longqian? He and his father were actually sentenced to prison? Su Yang already roughly guessed who was behind this incident. Otherwise, the Longway Group has been established for so many years, and nothing has happened before, but all of a sudden it was revealed in just a few days. How could there be such a coincidence? Moreover, the case was handled extremely quickly. In less than 3 days, a company with assets of over 1 billion yuan went bankrupt, and the father and son were thoroughly investigated, evidence collected, and sentenced to prison. All of this was actually completed in just 3 days. Under normal circumstances, in our country, Longguai, there is no such fast efficiency. Chapter 33, Is it fun playing games? Su Yang shook his head and just sighed inwardly, saying that one reaps what one sows. He didn't think about it anymore, and continued to work on today's tasks, customizing a business trip plan for tomorrow. Jinqiu normally had a 5-day workweek, which meant 2 days off on the weekend, but this investment fair was the company's next priority, and Su Yang had just been promoted to supervisor, so naturally he couldn't afford to slack off. He spent the weekend working overtime at the company to make plans. The trip would last almost half a month in the Jiangnan region, because there were so many clients to visit, and the last 2 days would be spent holding a brand launch and investment fair in the provincial capital, Linan City, so time was still very tight. When he finished work, Su Yang had just finished a meeting with the team leaders of the investment promotion department. As he walked out of the meeting room, he received a call from Zhang Yao. Yang, do you have time tonight? Zhang Yao's soft and pleasant voice came from the phone. Su Yang returned to his office and thought for a moment before saying, I don't have anything planned for tonight, but I'm going on a business trip to Linan tomorrow, so I was thinking about relaxing my mind and playing some games when I get back. What's so fun about games? Don't I smell good? Zhang Yao said with a smile. You're wrong, games are much more fun. I have a whole bunch of wives waiting for me to spoil. Su Yang said seriously. I don't care, just go shopping with me, you haven't spent any time with me these past few days. Zhang Yao said in a petulant manner. Su Yang had no choice but to humor Zhang Yao, and said with a mixture of laughter and tears, Okay, where can I find you? You come downstairs now, I'm across the street from your company. Zhang Yao beamed. Su Yang pursed her lips, You're already stalking me, aren't you? I want to see you sooner. Zhang Yao started to pout again. She also said that she was 4 years older than herself, so how could Sister Yao act like an older sister? Su Yang said helplessly, Then you wait for me downstairs, I'll come down right now. Okay, I'll wait for you. Zhang Yao said sweetly. What a nuisance. Su Yan hung up the phone, feeling annoyed, and walked towards the elevator. He had just delayed a bit, so there weren't many people waiting for the elevator. He got on the elevator without any problems and arrived downstairs. Su Yang stood in front of the company entrance and looked up to see the Rolls-Royce across the street. Fortunately, Sister Yao also knew how to avoid suspicion and didn't drive directly downstairs to pick him up. Otherwise, the news that he had left work in a Rolls-Royce would have quickly spread throughout the company. Su Yang crossed the road, then snuck around the building to the side facing away from the company, before opening the car door and slipping inside. Yang, you're finally here. Zhang Yao saw him get into the car and, like a couple in love, threw her arms around him and kissed him all over his face. Su Yang pushed her away and said with a pout, Why take advantage of me as soon as we meet? It's indecent. Didn't you say that night that I was a good girlfriend? Zhang Yao glared angrily. But you haven't been officially named my girlfriend yet, so you're just my friend for now, and we're still getting to know each other. Su Yang gave her a playful pinch on the cheek and laughed. Humph, sooner or later, I'll make you fall at my feet. Jiang Yao puffed up her chest and muttered. Su Yang glanced at the car that had already started moving and asked her, "Where are we going now?" Chapter 34, Let Me Be Your Girlfriend. First, we'll eat, then go shopping and buy you some clothes to wear when you meet with clients on business trips. Jiang Yao laughed as she took his arm. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. Su Yang said nonchalantly. He tilted his head and took a look at his sister today. She was dressed in a typical lady's outfit, a floral bubble-sleeve dress, showing off her snow-white skin and arms, and her oily flesh-colored stockings wrapped around her very textured legs. Her big chestnut curls hung over one shoulder, giving her a touch of the elegant lady. Her feet were in a pair of crystal high heels that were shiny and beautiful. Sister Yao Yao, how many pairs of high heels do you have? Su Yang couldn't help but ask curiously. It seemed that every time he saw Jiang Yao, she was wearing a different pair of high heels, and each pair was very new and exquisite. Jiang Yao smiled, rested one of her calves on his knee, and shook her foot in the high heels, saying, Yang, you probably don't know that I'm a girl who is heavily addicted to stockings and high heels. There are at least hundreds of pairs of high heels in the shoe cabinet at home, and every time a new pair comes out, someone will send them to me, so I basically change them every day, otherwise I really won't be able to wear them all. Su Yang examined Yao Yao's pair of crystal high heels like a work of art, squeezing them up and down. These crystal high heels are not the kind where the entire shoe is carved from crystal. Instead, a layer of powdery, glittering crushed crystal is applied to the upper of the shoe, giving it a sense of refraction and a shiny, powdery diamond-like appearance. What is a serious stockings addict? Su Yang, who didn't have a girlfriend, had to gossip about girl stuff with Jiang Yao. Jiang Yao said with a smile like a flower, I just like to wear all kinds of stockings. My room is full of piles and piles of stockings, all kinds of colors, shapes, patterns, and brands. Basically, I wear them and then throw them away, they're disposable consumables. What a waste. Where did you throw them? I'll go pick them up. Su Yang grinned, feeling sorry for himself. Jiang Yao giggled, extended her fragrant fingertips, and poked him in the forehead. The housekeeper cut them up when I threw them away, so what's the point of you picking them up? So the stockings I washed for you were washed for nothing? They took up half an hour. You really washed them? What else? You think I'm joking? Ha, since you washed them for me, I'll take them home tonight and keep them in my collection, marking them as the first piece of clothing that Yang washed for me. By the way, the quality of these stockings of yours is really thin and slippery. Su Yang said seriously, and his big hand grasped Jiang Yao's warm and fragrant calf, continuing, the other day when I hand-washed them for you, I was really afraid of accidentally ruining them. Sister Yao Yao's long, slender legs are really quite impressive. Wrapped in these ultra-thin flesh-colored glossy stockings, they are even more full of the charm of a young lady. Yang, if you let me be your girlfriend, I'll wear all kinds of different stockings and high heels for you to see every day, I guarantee you'll like them. Jiang Yao blinked her narrow eyes and said cutely. There's no need for that. Su Yang rolled his eyes, I'm looking at them every day already. Then you just want to look? Jiang Yao's mouth curled up slightly, and her foot clicked, kicking off her high heels and stepping on his knee with her bare, flesh-colored feet. Cough, it's pretty good just to look. Su Yang coughed, feeling like he had awakened some strange attribute. Chapter 35, Shopping and Dating. Then you can rub my feet for me, it's tiring when people come looking for you. Jiang Yao's little feet with rosy nail polish on them stepped on his lap. Su Yang said nothing, just hugged her feet and rubbed them, saying seriously, you've worked hard, Yao Yao. Jiang Yao tilted her head and leaned against the car door, smiling at him. After a while, the car stopped in front of a luxury hotel. Su Yang reluctantly let go of Jiang Yao's feet and looked up outside. Not going to Wangjiang Pavilion today? Su Yang noticed that this time the hotel was the Fortune Residence, which was also one of the famous luxury hotels in Shanghai. Let's change the taste today and eat some authentic Chinese food. Jiang Yao twisted her waist and elegantly wore high heels. That's good, I like Chinese food. Su Yang said honestly. By the way, Yang, this is also your mother's restaurant. Su Yang didn't know what to say. Did her strange adoptive mother own so many businesses? The Chinese food at Fuluju was really good, and it was owned by her own adoptive mother. Naturally, Su Yang was not shy about ordering the expensive dishes that she had never tried before. After dinner, it happened that the Su family residence was nearby. So Su Yang and Jiang Yao went shopping in a nearby super-large shopping mall to burn off some calories. Since it was just the beginning of the nightlife, there were a lot of people in the shopping mall. Jiang Yao walked in front with Su Yang's arm around her shoulder, and passers-by were always attracted by Jiang Yao's beauty and glanced over to them. Su Yang was not used to being stared at with those surprised looks, as if they were sizing up a pretty boy, and he felt a little uncomfortable. "What's wrong with you?" Jiang Yao noticed his unusual behavior and curiously tilted her head to look at him. "Sister Jiang Yao, your popularity is so high, don't you feel uncomfortable?" Su Yang whispered to her. Jiang Yao giggled and covered her mouth with her hand. "What's so uncomfortable about it? I've even given speeches to tens of thousands of people before, just ignore them." Su Yang laughed self-deprecatingly. "I guess all these people are thinking, this toad is actually walking with a swan, they're not at all compatible." He was not wrong. He was wearing a plain brand of casual clothes. Jiang Yao, on the other hand, was wearing a Dior custom-made lady's suit, plus her elegant temperament, and her high heels clicking. It really was like two people from different worlds. "I dare anyone to do it." Jiang Yao snorted, and glanced around at the passers-by. The cold gaze she had cultivated over a long period of time at Shuishan Group made everyone subconsciously nervous and avoid her. When they came to their senses, they realized that cold sweat had broken out on their backs, and they were too afraid to look around any longer. They lowered their heads and hurriedly walked a few steps faster. Su Yang watched this miraculous scene with amazement. Was Jiang Yao really that intimidating? After Jiang Yao withdrew her gaze, she brought her soft and charming face closer, smiled, and said with gentle eyes, "Come on, don't be depressed, I'll give you a kiss." As she spoke, she was about to kiss Su Yang's face. Su Yang quickly avoided it. "Stop it, we're still on the street." Yao Yao was unhappy. Jiang Yao pouted her lips and threw a tantrum. Su Yang couldn't help but soften her heart when she saw this expression and took the initiative to go over and kiss her cheek. "Okay? This is what a good young master is like." Jiang Yao immediately smiled with her eyebrows open. Chapter 36, Pack It All Up For Me. The Armani flagship store is one of the world's top luxury brands. It is known as one of the 8 red bloods and is a brand exclusively used by royal families of various countries. Its long history is deeply related to the royal family. People who can buy clothes in it are at least high-income people in the golden collar class. Su Yang was dragged into this flagship store by Jiang Yao. Seeing the fashionable and luxurious decoration of the store, he, a part-time worker who had just graduated from university, had really not been exposed to this kind of class environment. A saleswoman in uniform warmly welcomed Jiang Yao as soon as she saw her. "President Jiang, you're here. I've already prepared everything in advance." Su Yang glanced at the name tag of the saleswoman and was surprised to see that she was actually the store manager. Jiang Yao then took Su Yang and said to the female store manager, "Let's get started. This is the person you will be serving today." "Okay, General Jiang, just leave it to us." The female store manager patted her hands together, and immediately 2 more saleswomen came over and went up to Su Yang to take his measurements. Su Yang had never encountered such a situation before, so he could only let them do whatever they wanted, looking at Jiang Yao from time to time. After a long time, they had measured all of his measurements. One of the saleswomen had already pushed a whole rack of clothes over to him for him to try on. "Sister Yao Yao, this." Su Yang looked at Jiang Yao helplessly. Jiang Yao patted his shoulder, leaned in his ear, and said softly with a gentle breath of orchid fragrance, "Just enjoy these services with peace of mind. This is the life you should be living. Just get used to it slowly." Su Yang could only grit his teeth and take a set of clothes to the dressing room to change. From more casual pants, t-shirts, and casual shoes, to suits, leather shoes, belts, and ties for formal occasions. Finally, there were cufflinks, collar buttons and other various accessories, all of which Su Yang tried on. Every time Su Yang came out after changing clothes, Jiang Yao would pull him over to the full-length mirror and stand with his arms outstretched, allowing her to try on various combinations on him from head to toe. "Sir, your figure really suits wearing a suit, it makes you look different." The female shopkeeper sincerely complimented him. "Isn't that right? It really does live up to the saying that clothes make the man." Su Yang is almost 1.87 meters tall, with a slender and slightly thin figure, and is half a head taller than Jiang Yao, who is wearing high heels. Although he is an otaku, he is young and has a bit of muscle tone, plus a handsome face with sharp features and a healthy honey-colored complexion. Wearing a pure white cotton blend cashmere shirt, with a navy blue thin cashmere slim-fit suit over the top, and a pair of black derby shoes, he looks exactly like a professional model. Jiang Yao was holding a uniform blue silk tie with geometric stripes in her hands, carefully tying it for him, and said with a smile, this time, "Yang, you're walking down the street. You're definitely going to charm a lot of little girls, and even I can't help my heart pounding." Su Yang's face turned red from the praise, and he said cheekily, Sister Yao Yao, don't kid around, we don't need praise. Jiang Yao giggled, straightened his collar, and said softly, take a look for yourself to see if it fits. Su Yang looked at the large fitting room mirror and indeed, he looked a little more handsome than before. Jiang Yao already told the shopkeeper, pack up all the clothes and shoes that Yang just tried on and send them to my car. Okay, Ms. Jiang, we'll pack them right away. The shopkeeper replied and went to get to work. Chapter 37, I don't want to go home. Su Yang nudged Jiang Yao's small waist and whispered, I think I tried on more than 10 outfits just now, right? Do you really need to buy so many? It's not that much. Your mother told me to buy them for you. I'll also arrange for them to custom make a batch of clothes for you according to your measurements, and fill your entire wardrobe. Then you can just wear a different style every day. Jiang Yao looked at him with a smile. My wardrobe will be bursting at the seams tonight. Su Yang said helplessly. As for what Yao Yao said was that her strange biological mother had instructed him to buy it, he didn't pretend to be stubborn and say that he had to pay for it himself. Since he had already taken the bank card, it didn't matter if he took some clothes as well. When the two returned to the apartment where Su Yang lived with their bags, it was already 10 o'clock at night. Ah, Yang, you really hung up my stockings? As soon as Jiang Yao entered the door and put her things on the sofa, she looked up and saw a black silk stocking hanging from the hanger in the living room. A few days ago, Su Yang had seen the stockings drying and had collected them, but he didn't know how to preserve them, so he just hung them in the living room, afraid that folding them would crease them. He had also carefully used 2 clips to clip them to the horizontal bar at the bottom of the hanger, holding the soft stockings in place. Instead of just using the ends of the hanger to hold the stockings open, I was afraid of stretching them out or distorting them. And I laughed, saying, who told you to put it in my pocket? It's been worn before, and you can still eat it without washing it. Su Yang gave her a slap on the back of the head in exasperation. Jiang Yao squealed, giggling, Yang, you really are going to make me die of cuteness. Su Yang rolled his eyes, turned on the air conditioning, poured her a glass of water, and asked, when are you going back? Jiang Yao threw herself onto the sofa, turned on the TV with the remote control like a hostess, and exclaimed, I'm so tired from shopping tonight, I don't want to go back. Where will you sleep if you don't go back? Su Yang was at a loss. There was only one room in his bachelor pad. Can I sleep on the sofa? Don't send me away. Jiang Yao looked at him pitifully. Su Yang was helpless. I didn't say I was going to send you away. You can sleep in my room, I'll sleep on the sofa. How could he bear to let a delicate girl spend the night on the sofa? Jiang Yao smiled and giggled, our young master really cares about me. Su Yang rolled his eyes and walked over to take down her pair of ultra-thin black stockings. Take them back, or else if someone sees that I have these at home, they'll definitely think I'm a pervert. Su Yang handed the stockings to Jiang Yao with a depressed expression. Jiang Yao took them and put them in her bag, looked at him and laughed lightly. Why do you look like you still can't bear to part with them? Why don't you take the pair I'm wearing today? Like I'd keep them, go take a shower, it's not early anymore. Su Yang pouted. Jiang Yao rolled her eyes and pried Su Yang's arm. Yang, I didn't bring any change of clothes. Oh yeah, what should we do? Maybe you should go back? Su Yang also remembered this. No, I don't want to go back. You already agreed to let me stay. Jiang Yao shook his arm and pouted. So what do you want? Su Yang was at his wit's end with her pestering, so he simply threw the question back at her. Jiang Yao's eyes lit up, and she said with a smile, you give me a clean shirt, and I'll just wear it as pajamas. Okay. Su Yang really didn't have any other ideas. Chapter 38 Jiang Yao, Lazy Pig. Anyway, that's how it's played out in TV dramas, with girls using guys' shirts as pajamas a common occurrence. With that, he went back to his room and found a white shirt of his own. Go take a shower first, this towel is clean, and I'll go downstairs to buy you new toiletries. Su Yang handed her the items and said. Okay, I'll trouble our young master. Jiang Yao replied in a sweet voice, holding the shirt and towel and walking towards the bathroom, twisting her waist in a particularly elegant manner. Su Yang shook his head helplessly and laughed, and after hearing the sound of water coming from the bathroom, he confirmed that she was fine. Then he went downstairs to the convenience store next door and bought a toothbrush and other toiletries, as well as a pair of fancy girl slippers. When he returned, he passed by the Rolls-Royce and, after thinking about it, knocked on the driver's door. Yes, young master? Xiaoqing lowered the window and looked at him with her pretty eyes. Well, Jiang Yao is staying with me tonight, so why don't you go home first or find a hotel nearby to rest for a while? Su Yang said, scratching his head. It's fine, young master, don't worry about me, I can handle my own affairs. Xiaoqing said calmly. Su Yang guessed that she should have been used to this kind of life for a long time, so he didn't say anything more. Okay, just be careful. After saying this, he noticed that Xiaoqing was staring at him strangely. Su Yang then realized what had happened. She was a bodyguard, and he had underestimated her. It was just that this pretty bodyguard really looked very attractive. Subconsciously, he felt that she was just an ordinary girl. Su Yang shook his head helplessly, waved at her, and then carried his things upstairs. Back in his own room, Zhang Yao was still taking a shower in the bathroom. Su Yang took advantage of the time to tidy up his room a bit, and took out a new sheet and pillow to lay on the bed. Then he held the bedding he usually slept on and put it on the sofa in the living room. After all this, Zhang Yao also happened to come out of the bathroom, her pale face flushed. Her curvy body was still slightly loose in Su Yang's shirt, and the hem just covered the thigh area, giving a sense of missing underwear. The two long, slender, plain white legs kicked in Su Yang's slippers, and the 10 jade-like toes painted with rosy nail polish were exposed, very pretty. Come on, let's change the slippers first. Su Yang washed the fancy slippers she bought and brought them to Zhang Yao's feet. Zhang Yao blushed and quickly covered the corner of her clothes, smiling softly without saying a word. Yang, you're quite attentive, you remembered to buy me slippers. Su Yang had already straightened up and rolled her eyes, saying, don't praise me, I'm afraid you'll fall in love with me. Zhang Yao burst out laughing and ran a hand through her hair, which was falling over her shoulders. Do you have a hairdryer in your room? Yes, it's on the table. Su Yang led her to his room and pointed to the hairdryer, saying, do you want me to blow dry your hair? No, you go and take a shower, it's quite late. Zhang Yao felt a little embarrassed and pushed him with her legs together. Su Yang didn't think much of it and went into the bathroom to get his pajamas. Ha! When Su Yang suddenly saw a pile of bright clothes lying in the bamboo basket where he had put his clothes, he suddenly understood why Zhang Yao had been acting strangely just now. Early the next morning, Su Yang was woken up by the alarm clock, so he quickly turned it off and looked up at his room. Sure enough, the door was still closed, and Zhang Yao, that lazy pig, hadn't even got up yet. Chapter 39, Jiangnan Business Trip. Fortunately, Su Yang had prepared in advance and had taken out all the clothes he needed to change into for the day. After changing clothes quietly and going to the bathroom to wash up, Su Yang left her a note and, without waking her, grabbed his suitcase and took a taxi to the office alone. Today the entire department is going on a business trip to the Jiangnan region, and they are to meet downstairs at the company. Su Yang has just arrived downstairs at the company when Gao Meiqin waves at him from afar. Su Yang, this way. Su Yang pulls his suitcase along as he walks over, smiling and greeting the colleagues he encounters. After all, he is in the business development department, so even if he is not an outgoing person, at least he has to appear cheerful and generous in his interactions with others. If he can't even fake it, then he is not destined for any big developments. Manager Gao, are you coming with us? Su Yang asked, cheerfully, as he approached Gao Meiqin. He was wearing one of the outfits that Zhang Yao had picked out for him the night before, a pure white cotton blend cashmere shirt with navy blue casual trousers and a pair of black derby shoes. Although it was less formal than an Oxford shoe, it was perfectly adequate for a business setting, and there was no need for a young man to dress too formally. Moreover, when Su Yang was at work, he would usually deliberately make his eyes look sharp, giving the impression of being determined and persistent, and also making him look more mature and stable than his actual age, no longer like a fresh university graduate. Gao Meiqin looked at Su Yang and smiled. Today's clothes suit you very well, you look very handsome and sunny. I'm not lucky enough to go to Linen with you, but President Lu will go with you. She has been an old employee of Jinsho Trading for 7 or 8 years, and is confident that her eye for talent is no worse than anyone else's. She has seen the changes in Su Yang since his promotion to the position of investment promotion supervisor. His handsome face has become thinner, and he looks more and more confident and composed. His every move reveals the bearing of a young talent. Therefore, she was even more looking forward to Su Yang's trip to Linen and what kind of results he would achieve. Sister Qin was joking. Su Yang gave a hee-hee laugh and looked sideways. Manager Lu is going with us on the first day? Well, there is a friend of Manager Lu in Linen, and she plans to go there in person to talk. She also told me to ask you to go with her in Manager Lu's car today. I will lead the others in the company car. Gao Meiqi nodded and pointed to a parked Lincoln not far away. Su Yang looked in the direction she was pointing, and the black Lincoln lowered its window just in time to reveal the charming and beautiful face of Lu Rume, who was smiling and waving at him. President Lu is calling you, you go ahead, I'll take care of things here. Gao Meichin patted him on the shoulder. Okay, call me if you need anything. Su Yang nodded with a smile, grabbed his suitcase and walked over. Lu Rumei's secretary, Danielle, got out of the car and helped him put his luggage in the trunk before returning to the driver's seat to take charge of driving. Su Yang opened the back seat door and got in, and there was only Lu Rumei in the car. Today she was wearing a figure-flattering red skirt that cinched her soft waist tightly. Her face was lightly made up, exquisite and picturesque. Her good upbringing and pampered temperament gave her an inherent elegance. The flesh-colored stockings under the hem of her skirt tightly wrapped her slender and long legs, and the red high heels were slanted together, full of charming femininity. Chapter 40: Walking with the Female CEO. Su Yang glanced at her sideways. In terms of the charm of a mature woman alone, the charm and seduction revealed by Lu Rumei was the only mature woman he had seen besides Yang Yingyu. Especially as she seems to know instinctively how to show off her charm, her pair of stockings-clad calves peeking out from under her skirt are mesmerizing. Even Su Yang, who had met her strange biological mother, couldn't help but stare at her stockings-clad calves again. Little Yang, riding in the same car too. Linen with an old aunt like me won't cause you stress or discomfort, will it? Lu Rumei flicked her soft, big waves that rested on her one shoulder, looked at Su Yang with a half smile and winked. After all, no matter which company, no employee likes to be in the same space as the boss. Where would that be? President Lu looks like my sister and people would believe it, not to mention that President Lu is also so beautiful. It's even more pleasant to ride in the same car with you. Su Yang said sweetly. Perhaps it was because of the long period of time he had spent with Jiang Yao these days, his horizons and perceptions had greatly improved. Compared to last week when he met Lu Rumei in the president's office, Su Yang was now more at ease and not as stiff. Lu Rumei burst out laughing. You're taking advantage of me, calling me your sister. Recalling that she had hugged Su Yang back then, when he was still wearing open-crotch pants, she now found him actually claiming that she was his sister. The more she thought about it, the funnier it got. Lu Rumei covered her stomach and giggled nonstop, her soft and plump mature female body trembling repeatedly, exuding a different kind of temptation. Even Danielle in the front passenger seat looked at the two of them in the rearview mirror with some curiosity. She didn't understand why President Lu seemed to be a little different when dealing with Su Yang. Su Yang coughed lightly. I was just making a metaphor, I wouldn't dare take advantage of President Lu. I know, I was just joking with you. Lu Rumei carefully observed Su Yang and noticed that compared to the day of the interview, he did indeed seem more mature and stable. In particular, his eyes were deep and sharp, and the corners of his eyes were like jade, very attractive. Are we leaving now, President Lu? Danielle in the front seat asked softly. Ah. Lu Rumei then realized that she had been staring at Su Yang for a while, and couldn't help blushing slightly. Yes, let's go first, we won't wait for the rest of the group. After Danielle started the car and slowly drove out onto the road, Lu Rumei recovered and handed Su Yang a document with a smile. This is the information about the client I will be meeting with when we arrive in Linen later. Su Yang took it and looked through it carefully, slightly shocked. No wonder Lu Rumei had to go in person, this is really a super big client. Linen businesswoman Song Shuyuan is a powerful woman who mainly manages shopping malls, large shopping centers and pedestrian streets. Her assets even cover the entire Jiangnan region from Linen, including some industries in the magic city of Shanghai. Su Yang knows that those who sell products cannot do without major shopping malls, shopping centers and pedestrian streets, as these are the places with the highest footfall. If she can strike up a partnership with Song Shuyuan, then she can open brand stores in all the major shopping malls, shopping centers and pedestrian streets that she manages. This is a much more generous offer than the team members of the merchants recruitment team going to the customers one by one. Therefore, in the face of such a major customer with the ability and channels to sell branded cosmetics, manager Gao Meichin and Su Yang alone are not enough. Lu Rumei must personally negotiate. Chapter 41: The Life Plan of the Richest Person's Biological Mother. President Lu, this customer is too important for our investment promotion this time. We can only succeed and cannot fail. Su Yang looked up and said seriously. This investment promotion of the new brand of cosmetics is the most important development for Jinxiu trading in the next stage, and it is also the first large-scale investment promotion activity since the establishment of this brand. If Song Shuyuan can be successfully won over, then it will be a good start. Most businesses follow the crowd. Once they hear that such a large company is cooperating with Jinxiu, it will create a scale effect and greatly increase the business's trust in Jinxiu, making it easier for businesses to sign contracts. Lu Rumei looked at Su Yang with a smile. It's good to have confidence, but there's no need to put too much pressure on yourself. Jinxiu has already established the image of the new brand, set up a brand division, and even has a celebrity spokesperson. The logistics have all been taken care of, so it's just a matter of luck what kind of results we can achieve. I don't believe in luck. It's all up to people. Anyway, I will definitely give my colleagues in the department a good start. Su Yang said firmly. Okay, then I'll leave the main part of the negotiations to you. Lu Rumei looked at Su Yang expectantly and giggled. Song Shuyuan and I have actually been friends for many years, so there are some trivial matters that it is not convenient for her and I to get involved in. You can handle the details. No problem. Su Yang patted his chest confidently. Since Lu Rumei and Song Shuyuan were friends, the success rate of this collaboration would naturally be greatly enhanced. As for what Lu Rumei said, it actually meant that she would be responsible for playing the villain, while he would play the hero. As women worth tens of billions of dollars, neither of them was suitable for personally negotiating for a few points of profit. Not only would this make the other party look petty, but if they got too emotional over the dispute, it might even affect their relationship. So generally, they would be having tea and chatting to cultivate a rapport, while leaving the negotiations and profit disputes to their agents. And this time, Su Yang was naturally Lu Rumei's agent. Su Yang was very much looking forward to this business visit. Although he had only been a business development specialist for less than half a year and had only been promoted to supervisor the previous week, he was sure that he could still hold his own against the real masters of negotiation. But Su Yang didn't expect to be able to do much in this area. After all, no matter how capable he was, could he compare to the analysis of dozens of actuarial geniuses in those top negotiation teams? Therefore, since becoming the business development supervisor, he had been more focused on learning and exposure. He wanted to see how this business model worked, how cooperative negotiations were conducted, and how leaders did their jobs. This is all the survival knowledge that one must quickly acquire after entering society. Especially in case he really has to take over the family business from that strange mother in the future. Therefore, since learning that his biological mother is the richest woman in the world, Su Yang's life plan has changed. Instead of developing himself as an ordinary employee, he is learning all kinds of useful insights. Employees in charge of implementation can be hired with money, but the mind of a leader needs to be improved by oneself. This is a bit of a long-winded explanation. Anyway, the point is to learn and gain knowledge, accumulate experience for later use. The distance between the Magic City and Linen is less than 200 kilometers, and it takes about 2 hours to drive there. Chapter 42: Arriving in Linen. Along the way, Su Yang kept reading Song Shuyuan's information and sorting out his thoughts after the interview. Time passed quickly, and before he knew it, they had arrived in downtown Linen. Because they had set off early in the morning, it was only a little after 10 in the morning, so Su Yang and his entourage went directly to the bottom of Song Shuyuan's company building. This office building of the linen rich woman was in no way inferior to Lu Rumei's. The 30-odd-story office building shined in the sunlight, and the company name was Honghu Group. Song Shuyuan is in her early 40s, divorced, and has a daughter. Her daughter is Song Yamin, 23 years old, which is only 1 year older than Su Yang. Both mother and daughter hold the top positions at Honghu Group. In addition to commercial real estate such as shopping malls, they also do tourism development and real estate, and their business is very large. Their wealth has long exceeded tens of billions of yuan. Su Yang and Lu Rumei got out of the car and immediately saw a beautiful woman with long legs, a thin waist, and fair skin waving her hands and laughing as she walked towards them. "Auntie Lu, you're finally here." Su Yang's aesthetic sense, which had been raised considerably recently by Jiang Yao, could not help but brighten slightly when she saw this beauty, and a flash of surprise passed through her eyes. This was a beautiful woman who looked like she belonged to the delicate type. She was wearing a black chiffon Gucci dress with red-soled black high heels, showing off her beauty and sexiness. This should be Song Shuyuan's only daughter, Song Yamin, right? Sure enough, this charming beauty walked up close, intimately put her arm around Lu Rumei's arm, looked at Su Yang with a smile in her eyes, and was slightly surprised. "Auntie Lu, this is rare, you actually brought a cute guy with you? This can't be your boyfriend, can it? You're just talking nonsense." Lu Rumei gave her a flirtatious look, then extended her delicate little hand to pull Su Yang over and introduce him. "This is Su Yang, our investment promotion director at Jinxiu, who came with me to discuss cooperation." "Oh?" The flirtatious beauty blinked her long, flirtatious eyes, let go of Lu Rumei's arm, and extended her slender, soft, snow-white hand towards Su Yang. "Hello, Director Su, right? My name is Song Yamin, the general manager of Honghu Group." "Hello, Manager Song, I'm Su Yang." Su Yang extended his hand to shake hers, and they shook hands with a smile. Song Yamin smiled and made a gesture of invitation. Aunt Lu, Manager Su, let's go upstairs and chat. Okay. Lu Rumei nodded and led Su Yang into Honghu building. There were many office workers at Honghu Company, and Su Yang could see many busy people going in and out along the way. After entering the dedicated elevator, Song Yamin seemed to be chatting casually with Su Yang. Director Su, you came directly from the Magic City, didn't you? Linen is also very prosperous, but it is still not comparable to an international metropolis like the Magic City. Su Yang could hear that this seemingly casual chat was actually inquiring about the information about their arrival. Because the other party wanted to know whether Su Yang and the others had only come to visit Honghu and whether they had any other potential customers in Linen. At the same time, it implied that Su Yang was an outsider in the demon capital, and Honghu Group was a local tyrant in Linen. If they wanted to cooperate, they hoped to occupy more benefits. Therefore, Su Yang, in the face of this initial encounter, just smiled lightly and replied, Manager Song is joking. Although the demon capital is the largest economic center in the country, Linen is also a major economic city. In recent years, the total economic output has also been steadily increasing, promoting the rapid growth of Linen enterprises, which is second only to Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen. There is a lot of development potential. Chapter 43, Linen's Rich Woman. Su Yang has always felt that grasping people's psychology is the only way to effectively achieve one's goals. Whether it's a business cooperation conversation like this one, or a formal negotiation analysis, as long as you can study the psychology of your competitors or customers, you can take control of the conversation. Although he wasn't sure if the other party was intentionally testing him, he still didn't reveal their itinerary. At the same time, he hinted at the economy, saying that Linen had many local tyrants and that they also had more choices. If they wanted to cooperate amicably, they would have to offer conditions that would satisfy them. Song Yamin looked at him with some surprise. She didn't expect this handsome guy to have noticed her test and to have countered it. Lu Rumei's charming eyes also narrowed a little, with a faint smile in her eyes. Although she had long known Su Yang's identity, she did not treat him as an ordinary young man, but at this time, seeing him handle the situation so perfectly, her impression of him had improved even more. It really was true that like father, like son. Even if Yu and her precious son had been separated for so many years before they recognized each other, they were ultimately the outstanding genes of their family. Su Yang had been observing Song Yamin's reaction, and now he was finally sure that his guess was correct. From this point of view, this cooperation should be stable. At least the other party is obviously interested, otherwise they would not have tested him like this. The only question is how the benefits will be distributed. Thinking about this, Su Yang could not help but let out a sigh of relief. It seems that this investment promotion will be able to get off to a good start. The elevator quickly arrived at the office on the top floor. Song Yamin led Su Yang and the others in, shouting, Mom, Aunt Lu and the others have arrived. A beautiful woman in business attire got up from her desk and greeted them with a radiant smile. Rumei, I was expecting you yesterday when you called to say you were coming. I've missed you so much. Lu Rumei gave her a close hug, looked her up and down, and smiled from ear to ear. Shu Yuan, your figure is getting better and better. Stop flirting with me, aren't you getting plumper and plumper too? Song Shuyuan gently pushed Lu Rumei away, and her eyes glanced past her at Su Yang. She said with a sigh, could it be that you've been nourished by love? You sound exactly like Minner, no wonder you're mother and daughter. Lu Rumei pouted, turned back to Su Yang and gave a charming smile. This is Song Shuyuan, the president of Honghu Group, whom I've told you about. Hello, Miss Song, I'm Su Yang, the investment promotion director of Jinqiu. Su Yang politely said hello and handed over her business card, smiling and continuing, if it weren't for Ms. Lu's introduction, I would have really thought you were Manager Song's sister. He wasn't exaggerating. The woman in front of him was similar in height to Song Yamin, but her figure was more supple and plump than her daughter's. She had a beautiful appearance and exquisite makeup, quite similar to Song Yamin. If I didn't already know that she was Song Yamin's mother, Su Yang would have thought they were sisters. When Song Shuyuan extended her small hand with the rhinestone nail art to take the business card, a faint and unique fragrance permeated the air. The charming eyes that resembled those of a fox revealed a hint of a smile. Manager Su really knows how to talk. Let's sit down and chat. My daughter should be about the same age as you, so you should have things to talk about. Chapter 44, The Rich Song Woman. The CEO's office was very luxurious, and Song Yamin had already brewed tea next to it. The two sat around the tea table, chatting while drinking tea. Try this tea, it's this year's Mingqian Longjing. I drink it and it's not bad. It's said to help with digestion and weight loss, and reduce the fat around the waist and abdomen. Song Shuyuan smiled, showing her porcelain white teeth, lifted her teacup and took a sip, and rubbed her belly. Su-yang subconsciously glanced at her abdomen, and was amazed by the smoothness and firmness of her waist and abdomen, which were tightly hugging her white shirt. Where could you even see a hint of excess fat? Indeed, no matter how good a woman's figure is, she will never be satisfied with her pursuit of beauty, just like those women who are obviously skinny but still complain about dieting every day. After a few idle chats, Lu Rumei put down her teacup and got to the point. Shu Yuan, I heard that your Hanghu group is interested in operating some self-operated stores. Recently, our Jinsho has just launched a new brand called MyFuya, which includes a variety of products for women and men, covering multiple fields such as skincare, makeup, hair care, and hair coloring, and is positioned in the mid to high-end market in China. I think it is quite suitable for us to establish a cooperative relationship. Su Yang handed Song Shuyuan and Song Yimin the product manual and promotional album at the right time. Song Shuyuan placed the album on her slender legs, flipped through it, and said with a smile, "At present, we do have some spare funds in Hanghu that we want to use for something. I have also learned about your company's new products before, but I'm not sure if your new brand can succeed. There have been many cosmetic brands in the industry that suddenly disappeared without a trace." Su Yang calmly introduced to them, General Manager Song, I understand your concerns in this regard, but we at Jinsho take this brand very seriously and will continue to invest a lot of money, including in research and development. We are already preparing the next generation of replacement products that target the anti-aging benefits of skincare. After Su Yang gave a brief introduction, she began to familiarize them with the current state of the cosmetics market. The competitiveness of domestic cosmetics brands continues to increase, and market share is also showing a sustained growth trend. It is estimated that the market size this year will reach 579.1 billion yuan. Then, she focused on Jinsho's new brand, highlighting the competitive advantages and performance differences between similar competing products. Su Yang's strategy was also very simple: to emphasize the strengths and avoid the weaknesses. After introducing Jinsho's new cosmetics, Su Yang also gave Song Shuyuan a general overview of Jinsho's best-selling cosmetics on the market and the company's market share in this category. Many consumers recognize brands. If a cosmetic product sells well, it will make the brand known to consumers. They will become potential consumers of the new products, and may be driven by advertising to choose to buy new products to try. Finally, Su Yang also revealed the future development plan of this new brand of cosmetics. After meeting the domestic market demand, it will also develop overseas markets and seek breakthroughs in emerging markets. Thanks to Su Yang's near photographic memory and intimate knowledge of industry data, he can easily recall all kinds of data. Song Shuyuan and Song Yimin nodded repeatedly as they listened. They had no idea that Su Yang had only been the supervisor for a week. They thought it was his personal qualities and abilities, as well as his serious attitude towards work, that allowed him to memorize all this data off the cuff. Chapter 45, First Encounter. Lu Rumei, on the other hand, was surprised. The way she looked at Su Yang had really changed. Was this really the young man who had only been the investment promotion supervisor for a week? How was it that he was more familiar with industry data and information than she was? She could only sigh at this handsome man who had given her so many surprises, and attribute it to Yang Yingyu. He was worthy of being the biological son of the queen of the devil's capital. Song Shuyuan was obviously even more convinced by Su Yang's familiarity with the domestic cosmetics market and his confidence in the market prospects. She also did not hide her intentions, and with a smile, said, "I am very interested in this cooperation. How about this, Manager Su, you talk to my daughter about the details. It is rare for you, President Lu, to come to our company, so I will show her around." This was something that had been planned a long time ago. Su Yang smiled calmly, "No problem, I will discuss it in detail with Manager Song." Lu Rumei also stood up, and without showing any signs, winked at Su Yang in praise. Then she twisted her waist and left the office with Song Shuyuan. Both women were at the perfect age, with plump figures and pretty faces. When they walked, there was always a charming air about their long legs and small waists. However, Su Yang quickly averted his gaze, fixing his eyes on Song Yimin, who was sitting to his side. Song Yimin seemed a little unnatural, running her hand through the hair at the side of her face and giggling. "Although you saw through my test earlier, I'm still very happy to have met a worthy opponent. The most important thing in managing a company is experience. Manager Song is naturally very capable of managing such a large company for President Song, and I look forward to working with Manager Song." Su Yang took a sip of tea and assumed a serious expression. "Fine, I won't beat around the bush. I want exclusive rights to sell this new Mia Fea cosmetics in the linen market, Song Yamin said directly to Su Yang. Manager Song has quite an appetite. Su Yang narrowed his eyes, his gaze falling on her rosy lips. He smiled and said, although I also know Hanghu's strength in linen, and there is indeed no problem with you running the market, as I said before, linen is developing rapidly, and there are always markets in various regions that you Hanghu cannot cover. If you want to fight for the exclusive operating rights in linen, then you will also need to give your company's promises and guarantees, right? Song Yamin's mouth curled up slightly, and she said with a laugh, I don't deny that linen still has markets that we Hanghu haven't covered for the time being, but you can't deny that basically all the busiest roads in the city have our Hanghu shopping centers, large shopping malls, and pedestrian streets. As for those that haven't been covered, they are just streets and counties in towns with poor traffic. Since your Maifui is positioned in the mid to high-end market, the consumer base will definitely be concentrated in bustling places. Do you think there is anyone more suitable for you to cooperate with than us? Su Yang's mouth curled into an elusive smile, and without saying a word, he tapped his finger on the map of Jiangnan that had just been spread out on the coffee table, continuing to manipulate the situation. I remember that apart from the commercial real estate in Linen, Hangzhou and Huzhou also have some industries in the entire Jiangnan region, including the Magic City, right? Are you saying that Manager Song is not interested in these regions? Song Yamin looked at Su Yang, who was talking confidently, her beautiful eyes flashing. After a moment of silence, she said, you should know that in addition to your beautiful skincare products, several cosmetics companies have also launched new products this year. Chapter 46, 100 Store Plan. Su Yang just laughed softly when she heard her point. This year, several cosmetics brands have indeed launched new products, but they lack confidence in the prospects of the domestic market, which will restrict the expansion of these brands in the domestic market. This is very fatal for your business operations. I think that at present, apart from our Mia Fea, there are no new products in the domestic market that can compete with foreign brands in the short term. However, there is more than one company in Jiangnan province that can compete with Hangzhou and Huzhou. They should be very interested in taking advantage of the opportunity to enter the linen market and even take over the whole of linen, right? Song Yamin was obviously touched by his words, but she couldn't disagree with the obvious. No wonder Aunt Lu had put the investment promotion department under his management. Director Su, I admit that I underestimated you before. Song Yamin's mouth curled up into a smile again, and her beautiful eyes looked at Su Yang carefully. How about this? What do I need to promise you in order for you to hand over the linen market to me, and ideally also allow our Hanghu industry to occupy market share in other urban areas? Su Yang saw that she had given in, and couldn't help but clench her fist in celebration of her victory. This client is really crucial. As long as we can win over this mother and daughter in Hanghu, it will have a knock-on effect and make it easier to break through in the entire Jiangnan region. So, we must strike while the iron is hot. Since you Hanghu have decided to launch this new brand, you should do your best to seize the initiative, so that you can achieve a stunning effect. If Hanghu can promise our company that it will open 100 stores in linen within 3 months, then our company will give you exclusive rights to operate the linen market. Even if you want to open stores in other cities in the future, our company can also provide you with the right to operate 100 stores opening on the same day in 3 months? Song Yamin directly picked out the key point. Su Yang laughed heartily and said, yes, according to the time, it will be the Mid-Autumn Festival and National Day holiday. If we can seize this time period to market this 100 store plan well, we will definitely be able to seize a lot of market share. It depends on whether Manager Song has the courage to do so. Song Yamin naturally also knew that there had to be a gimmick for the opening of the new store. This 100 store plan was indeed a very eye-catching plan, but the funds required for the entire plan, including publicity costs and the like, would also exceed 1 billion. In the end, Song Yamin pursed her lips and looked at Su Yang, saying firmly, I agree to your terms, but Jinqiu must give us a more favorable discount on supplies. No problem. Su Yang was in a great mood and offered his hand with a light smile. Manager Song, happy cooperation. Happy cooperation. Song Yamin extended her delicate little hand and shook it with his, looking at Su Yang's handsome face with beautiful eyes, slightly blushing. Among the business conversations she has had so far, there are not many people who can force themselves to give way, and this man in front of her is the first. She has met many young talents at home and abroad, but she just feels that this man in front of her is full of a different kind of charm. His smile is also very sunny, and in short, he is quite special. It seems that there is still a lot for her to learn from her mother. When the two beautiful and mature women, Lu Rumei and Song Shuyuan, returned to the office again, Su Yang and Song Yamin had already negotiated a discount on the supply of the beautiful skin brand. Chapter 47, The Greatest Confidence. Generally speaking, it is normal for cosmetics agents to get a 50% discount on purchases. However, in the mid to high-end cosmetics sector, the purchase price may be between 40% and 90% off, depending on the market price and the merchant's reputation. So this time, because Song Yamin had given in, Su Yang also gave himself the appropriate lower discount within his authority, and the supply discount for all Hanghu self-operated stores was 57%. This was still a mutually satisfactory result after the two had argued endlessly. For cosmetics equivalent to a retail price of 100 yuan, Jinxiu Trading's purchase price for Hanghu Group was only 43 yuan, with a large enough profit margin reserved. Even if Hanghu Group offered discounts or free gifts when the new store opened, they could still guarantee a considerable profit after deducting the store's costs. No wonder Lu Rumei and Song Shuyuan didn't want to come down to negotiate. It was quite demeaning for their status to argue over a discount of 0.12%. Naturally, Song Shuyuan treated everyone to lunch as the hostess. On the way to the restaurant, Lu Rumei looked up in surprise at Su Yang after reading a preliminary agreement he handed her, and after staring at him for a while, she giggled and said, "Gao Meiqin really recommended a good talent to me. If I didn't know that you've only been the head of business development for a week, I would have really thought that you were an old hand in the industry. Not only did you negotiate a deal, but you also got 100 stores in 3 months, and the supply discount didn't even give you the lowest price in your terms of reference. You've done really well." Perhaps Su Yang's promotion was due to Yang Yingyu's influence, which was a kind of luck, but now Lu Rumei already believed that Su Yang had the ability and strength to hold down the position of investment promotion director. After all, now he can even handle the cooperation negotiations with Hanghu Group with ease, not to mention potential customers that are weaker than Hanghu. And how many in the entire Jiangnan region can compare to Hanghu? Therefore, after gaining this experience of cooperating with Hanghu, the subsequent investment promotion work will only be even more easy for Su Yang. Su Yang pretended to be embarrassed. "President Lu, please don't flatter me. I am just riding on the coattails of a big tree. If Splendid Commerce hadn't endorsed me, I wouldn't have had the confidence to talk about cooperation with Song Yamin." "Oh, you're being modest. You haven't seen what those young talents who want to talk about cooperation with Minner are like. Either they are being crushed by Minner, or they are pretending to be generous and crazy about concessions, like second-generation masters who don't take business seriously." Lu Rumei doesn't hold back her words, smiling at him. Su Yang could only smile and remain silent. As for the so-called young talents that Lu Rumei was talking about, he guessed that they were either wary of Hanghu's strength or just trying to woo Song Yamin. In fact, for Su Yang, the biggest reason for his confidence in being able to handle himself well in front of Song Yamin came from his strange biological mother. Because even if he doesn't do this job well, there is still a way out behind him. Although Su Yang doesn't consider himself Yang Yingyu's son now, he will ultimately be influenced by her in his behavior and actions. No longer alone, without support, as he once was, he can now live his life on thin ice, fearing that he will be fired at any time if he does something wrong. Anyway, he is less cautious about people and things, and can freely express his own thoughts. He has also become more confident and doesn't second-guess himself. Chapter 48. Yang Yingyu missed her son. It wasn't long before the car stopped at Linen's long-established and famous hotel, the Fanhai Daiou Yutai Hotel's Imperial Garden Chinese restaurant. This restaurant specializes in Hangzhou cuisine, and it is said that some of the utensils used are still based on the standard configuration used by the imperial court in Cixi back then, giving diners a truly royal experience. Just as Su Yang and Lu Rumei got out of the car and, accompanied by Song Shuyuan and her daughter, walked into the restaurant. In a low-key Mercedes-Benz parked by the roadside. Yang Yingyu was sitting in the car, staring through the window at the figure of Su Yang until it disappeared from her sight, at which point she let out a low sigh. She had traveled from the Devil City to Linen today just to catch a glimpse of Su Yang. After all, he was her closest and most flesh-and-blood son. And because of what happened back then, the mother and son had been separated for 21 years. Although the mother and son have not yet recognized each other, how could the mother not miss her precious son? So, she wanted to come and see what he was doing and see if he was having a good day. "Aunt Yu, I just received a message from Aunt Lu. I heard that young master was amazing this time." Even Minner was forced to back down by young master and could only accept the conditions proposed by Yang. Jiang Yao smiled and held up her phone, reporting the good news to Yang Yingyu. Yang Yingyu took back her thoughts, suppressed the longing, and took the phone casually to have a look. She couldn't help but smile occasionally at the corner of her mouth. "There are many powerful people in the world, but my Yang is the only one. I have never cared about his abilities. No matter what kind of person he is or what kind of things he does, I think they are all very good and perfect. Anyway, in my eyes, my Yang is the most outstanding and smartest child in the world, and he is also the most precious treasure in my heart. Love is something like this, there is no reason to speak of. Because Su Yang is Yang Yingyu's biological son, she would hate to give him the best love in the world. This is true, in my heart, my young master is also the most perfect, even in a daze, he is still very handsome, I like him very much. As long as our young master is healthy and happy for the rest of his life, that is enough. Jiang Yao nodded in approval when she heard what Aunt Yu said. Some people are just born to be loved unconditionally. Yang Yingyu and Jiang Yao never took any man in the world seriously, except Su Yang. In their eyes, he was just different. They would be intoxicated by Su Yang, they would sigh with regret because of him, and they would toss and turn because of him. They didn't need Su Yang to be a good person, nor did they need him to be talented. He doesn't even need to do anything to earn all the love from Yang Yingyu and Jiang Yao. Therefore, Yang Yingyu and Jiang Yao love Su Yang not because he is outstanding, but because he is Yang Yingyu's biological son, so they love him for no reason at all. Then no matter what kind of person he is, they will think that everything about him is good. Jiang Yao tilted her head and looked at Yang Yingyu, who was staring out the window again in a daze. She smiled and teased, Auntie Yu, why did you only let Auntie Lu know that young master is your son, but didn't tell Auntie Song and Minner this news? Otherwise, Minner would probably have swooned and pounced on Yang. After all, Honghu Group was able to gain a foothold in Linen and even help her take over the family group because of Yang Yingyu's power. Chapter 49, at your disposal. Yang Yingyu still has her own personal shares in Honghu Group, and she is definitely someone that Song Shuyuan and her daughter want to curry favor with. A trace of affection flashed in Yang Yingyu's noble phoenix eyes, let your Aunt Lu know, because we need her to help us cooperate, but if you let your Aunt Song and Minna know, it will be the same as everyone acting for my younger to see, and I don't like that. Jiang Yao took Yang Yingyu's arm and exclaimed in admiration, Auntie Yu, you really love Master Yang, and you consider everything so carefully. Yang Yingyu pinched the girl's face and smiled slightly, pursing her lips, you little girl still have the nerve to say that, last night you spent the night at Younger's, wasn't it fun? It wasn't fun at all. The young master didn't even sleep with me. He went out and slept on the sofa. When he woke up, he left a note saying that he had to go to work and didn't care about me. Jiang Yao complained to Aunt Yang. Then why did you oversleep this morning? I thought you weren't going to come back today because you weren't feeling well. Yang Yingyu laughed mockingly. Auntie Yu, this is not my fault. I left the door ajar for Master last night, thinking he would come in. I waited half the night but there was no movement, so I overslept. Jiang Yao said with a pout. You, sleeping in my son's bed, and complaining? Yang Yingyu poked her head with her fragrant fingertips. Jiang Yao's pretty face suddenly became a little embarrassed, and she blushed and said, actually, there's one more thing. Master's bed smells like him, and it's so comfortable to sleep in that I didn't realize it was past 9 o'clock. Yang Yingyu looked at her with some envy, and with a complex in her eyes, she said, it's about time we find Younger a new house. I feel bad for him living in that house. When Master comes back, shall I take him to Meiyuan Villa District to pick one out? Jiang Yao suggested. Well, I'll leave it to you to take care of it. Yang Yingyu's gaze couldn't help but drift out the window again. Yanger, mommy misses you so much. In the private room of the Royal Garden Chinese restaurant, Su Yang and his party sat down as guests and hosts. Song Shuyuan had already heard from her daughter about the previous negotiations, and looked at Su Yang with even more admiration in her eyes, smiling as she raised her glass of red wine. Director Su is really someone who can accomplish great things. I just learned from your boss Lu that you have only been the investment promotion director for less than a week, and you are also a year younger than our Minner. Why don't you just come to Honghu to help me out, and don't go back to Jinqiu? Lu Rumei nudged her lightly and scolded with a smile, how can you poach someone in front of my face? You're being too blatant. Su Yang smiled and raised his glass to clink with Song Shuyuan, Mr. Song is too kind. Our general manager Lu has been kind to me and I'm counting on him to give me a bonus after this mission is over. How could I forget my roots? He would not take the words of this linen-rich woman seriously, and the jokes at the table were just used to liven up the atmosphere. And even if Song Shuyuan really meant it, Su Yang would not just jump ship like that, otherwise after such an incident in his career, who would dare to trust and feel at ease using him in the future? Lu Rumei couldn't help but laugh when she heard Su Yang's words, with a smile at the corner of her eyes, yes, we at Jinqiu don't mistreat our loyal employees, so don't you ever think of taking advantage of our manager Su again. Are you really not considering it? Song Shuyuan, however, seemed to be serious, slowly and leisurely placing the red wine by her sexy lips, but her gaze remained fixed on Su Yang. If you come to work at Hanghu, maybe both Minner and I will listen to you and let you do whatever you want. Chapter 50, Gain Both People and Wealth. This remark was a little ambiguous, causing Song Yamin, who was sitting next to her, to blush and say, "Mom, what are you talking about?" Su Yang took a sip of wine, letting the liquid slide down his throat, and still smiling gently without haste or rest, he said, "I hope that we can cooperate with Hanghu in every aspect. Jinqiu and Hanghu are both very capable companies, and a strong alliance between them will definitely bring out a different style." He is not the type to panic in the face of temptation, and he keenly senses a hint of testing in the other person. Sure enough, Song Shuyuan's smile became even more charming, and she couldn't help but giggle and say, "It really can't be underestimated that young people are capable. Then I wish Director Su an early promotion, and I hope that we can cooperate with Hanghu on other projects in the future." "I'll take your kind words." Su Yang smiled and raised his glass in a toast. In fact, on the way here, Song Shuyuan sensed from her daughter's tone that she had some favorable impression of Su Yang. After all, mother and daughter are connected at heart, and over the years, her daughter has seen those so-called young talents with disdain, but just now on the bus, she praised Su Yang a few times. Naturally, Song Shuyuan could not help but worry that the other person was after her family's money, or even both her and her money. After all, having been in the business world for so many years, Song Shuyuan had met all kinds of outstanding young people, but no matter how outstanding they were, she would not be interested. After all, in front of her status, there are really too many young talents who deliberately show themselves for various purposes. However, now it is a matter of her own daughter, and she cannot help but care. Moreover, when Song Shuyuan took Lu Rumei on a tour of the company, she also vaguely sensed from Lu Rumei's attitude and words that this young handsome guy seemed to be more than just an ordinary supervisor working for Jinqiu. After all, she and Lu Rumei have known each other for many years, and naturally she also understands her temperament and past. In the past, Lu Rumei had never taken a male subordinate on a business trip with her, and they had never even shared a car. That was why Song Shuyuan and Song Yamin had initially teased her, thinking that Lu Rumei and the male subordinate might have an affair. But now it seemed that the two of them did not have a relationship, which made it even more strange. In short, there seemed to be some secret or story hidden in Supervisor Su's body, which aroused Song Shuyuan's curiosity about him. Before long, a sumptuous Hangzhou-style meal was served. A few glasses of wine later, the mood had warmed up and the conversation flowed freely. "Director Su has been staying in Linen these days, right? Why don't you let Minner show you around?" Song Shuyuan looked at Su Yang with a smile, her plump legs crossed at the ankles, showing off her soft curves and the charm and elegance of a mature woman. Since she had just dispelled some of her doubts, she was not worried about her daughter making friends with him. Moreover, she had a good impression of this young man, and she wanted to dig deeper to uncover the secrets of this young man. With her status and past failed marriage, it was completely impossible for her to find a truly reliable other half again, so she had never intended to remarry. However, she did not want her daughter to be like her, affected by her failed marriage, which had led to the fact that she had never had any friends of the opposite sex. If things go on like this, she is really worried that her daughter will also end up lonely like her. Chapter 51, Promise. Su Yang glanced at the beautiful Song Yamin and noticed that her eyes were also full of expectation. He thought for a moment and said, "I still have some work to do for a while, and my colleagues in our department are still visiting customers in other cities in Jiangnan. After I'm done, I can take a good look around Linen." "That's settled then. I'll take you around Linen and check out the market while I'm there." Song Yamin smiled, curling her red lips up, and she had a natural, seductive charm about her. Both mother and daughter were beautiful women with great figures, looks and temperament, and even the charm they exuded was the same. It could only be said that they were indeed mother and daughter. Su Yang raised his glass and clinked it with Song Yamin, saying, "Then I'll trouble you, Manager Song." Lu Rumei watched Su Yang's ability to socialize with ease and appreciation, and nodded in secret. She had a charming smile on her face. "I suddenly remembered something. Today, Manager Su came with me, but I'm going back to the Devil's capital later. Shu Yuan, can I borrow a car for Manager Su to use during this time? He still has a lot of places to go." Although the company also has a business development team that has come to Linen to assist Su Yang, and there is certainly no shortage of vehicles, she still made this request, using this kind of mutual help and small favors to quickly bring Su Yang and Hangzhou closer together. This is adult socializing. If you are not afraid of owing favors, you are afraid of not mentioning them. The more you are afraid of causing trouble for the other person, the more distant the two sides will become. Of course there is no problem, it's just a car, there are plenty of them. Song Shuyuan happily agreed, and her fingertips with rhinestone nail art gently twirled on the wineglass as she tilted her head and passed the opportunity to Song Yamin again. Minner, I'll leave this to you, it's also convenient for you young people to communicate. Okay, I'll have someone send a car over later. Song Yamin smiled at Su Yang, and although her flirtatious expression did not intend to seduce, it still exuded a different kind of charm. Thank you so much, President and Manager Song, you've really helped me out. Su Yang looked at Song Yamin's long, flirtatious eyes and politely expressed his gratitude. Fortunately, during the summer vacation, he had taken the opportunity with his classmates to get his driver's license during the holidays, otherwise he would not have been able to borrow a car. We are partners, it's just a small favor. Song Yamin blinked her eyes, picked up her red handbag, and sent a message to have someone arrange for the car to come. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, the group returned to Honghu Building. Su Yang and Song Yamin continued to follow the agreement they had reached in the morning, adding some other details. For example, regarding the advertising and marketing costs of the 100-store plan, Su Yang and Song Yamin also negotiated that each company would bear 50%. After all, this is also considered to increase the popularity and brand value of the new brand Miafia, and Jinxiu still needs to subsidize half of it. As for the remaining franchise deposit and the agency fee for the linen area, they are insignificant in the face of the capital cost of 10 billion for 100 stores. After discussing these details, they made an appointment to formally sign the contract at the investment promotion meeting to be held in Linen at that time. Su Yang and Lu Rumei then got up to say goodbye. Song Shuyuan and her daughter personally saw them off downstairs. Song Yamin took the car keys from her secretary, walked over to Su Yang with a fragrant breeze, and pointed to the black Mercedes Maybach parked at the door. Chapter 52, The Right Decision. Director Su, considering that you will be meeting various clients later, I took the liberty of picking out a car that is more formal for business. If you are not used to driving it, feel free to let me know and I will change it. Su Yang looked at this charming woman with a smile on her face, the breeze blowing her long hair, and shook his head and laughed. No need to change it, you picked the right one. Then I'll see you again some other day. If you need help, feel free to call me. Song Yamin winked playfully and handed him the car keys. No problem. Su Yang also winked and made a phone call gesture before opening the car door, saying goodbye to Song Shuyuan and Lu Rumei, and finally waving to Song Yamin before getting into the car and starting it. He still had to go find the investment promotion team assigned to Linen and get started. Today was just the first step towards success. Lu Rumei watched the car as Su Yang drove off, and with a knowing smile, she glanced at Song Shuyuan and said, Shuyuan, I have to say, you made a pretty good decision today. Oh? You mean the new cooperation between our two companies? Song Shuyuan didn't quite understand what she meant. Yes. Lu Rumei covered her moist, sexy lips and giggled, also twisting her voluptuous, provocative, mature body into her car and waving goodbye to her. Song Shuyuan shook her head and laughed. This demon, we've been friends for so many years and she's still playing charades in front of me, she really should let Queen Yang give her a good scolding. On the other side, Su Yang drove the Maybach straight to the hotel where the Linen investment promotion team was staying. Jinxiu treats its employees very well. For example, for expenses incurred during business trips, the finance department will deposit in advance into the bank cards of the employees going on the trip. Of course, this advance is a loan, and when they return to the company, they need to fill in a business trip itinerary and submit an invoice to offset the advance. If they spend the money unwarrantedly, it will be deducted from their salary. Su Yang, as the head of investment promotion, received 100,000 yuan in advance, and the hotel he stayed in during the trip was a luxury suite at the highest standard, while the ordinary employees could only stay in a standard room at most. This is the epitome of social stratification. Expenses such as catering and communication are allocated according to different levels. Su Yang went to the luxury suite booked for him by his colleagues and first looked at the battle reports sent from various regions in the group. The first day was basically spent visiting potential customers that had been contacted by phone at the company, but the results were not great. After all, some regions were quite far away, and many people had only just arrived in their area in the afternoon. Su Yang checked the general situation and announced the 100-store plan he had just reached with Honghu Group. Naturally, his colleagues in the group were very surprised. Even those who had already secured a few signed customers were dumbfounded by such a result. After all, in their plan, it would be good to have some gains today, but they never expected that Supervisor Su had already secured 100 stores. Boss is awesome. With Honghu Group as an example, we will have more confidence when introducing it to customers. Yes. Manager Su has really made a stunning start this time, which will be very helpful in encouraging customers to sign contracts. Su Yang did not become overconfident, but after encouraging his colleagues, he let everyone continue with their work arrangements. The linen market has now been exclusively handed over to Honghu, so he also needs to recall the investment promotion team here and rush to other cities to help. Chapter 53, Linen Investment Promotion Conference. Standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of his suite, Su Yang looked out at the scenery, lit a cigarette, and was organizing his thoughts. According to the information detected so far, Lu Rumei and Song Shuyuan do have a good personal relationship. In that case, in order to facilitate their future expansion in the Jiangnan market, the Jiangnan Provincial Agency could actually be handed over to Hangzhou and Huzhou. But that's all for the future. At least after the 100-store plan opens, they will consider expansion when Honghu sees the profits and prospects. But with this idea, Su Yang naturally also needs to adjust the investment promotion work for the entire Jiangnan district in advance, so that Honghu can have more of a say within Jiangnan province as much as possible. Busy days always pass by especially quickly. In the blink of an eye, Su Yang has been rushing around various cities in Jiangnan for more than 10 days. During this time, thanks to the Honghu Group's cooperation case, those potential customers in Jiangnan also became very interested in this new brand of cosmetics from Jinxiu, so the number of customers negotiated also exceeded expectations. After all, the economic trends of most cities in the country closely follow those of the provincial capital. If linen can make Jinxiu's beauty and elegance a success, then it will soon become popular in other cities as well. Therefore, on June 29, Su Yang drove back to Linen alone. Because the Jinxiu Trade Fair would be held in Linen in 2 days' time, a large-scale investment fair. Su Yang had come early to help manager Gao Meichin prepare for the fair. The other members of the investment promotion team would arrive tomorrow and inform the clients that they would formally sign the contracts at the Linen Investment Fair on July 1. After arriving in Linen, Su Yang first called manager Gao to ask for her location, and then drove over to find her. Linen New Century Grand Hotel is the largest 5-star business hotel in the entire Jiangnan region, and it is also the venue for the investment promotion conference hosted by Jinxiu Trading the day after tomorrow. Su Yang met Gao Meichin again in the hotel's presidential suite. "Little Yang, you did well. I didn't expect your first battle after taking office to be fought so beautifully." Gao Meichin sat Su Yang down in the living room of the suite, and there was a smile of relief on her still charming face. "This is also thanks to President Liu for giving us a good start on the first day, otherwise the investment promotion work that followed would not have gone so smoothly." Su Yang smiled modestly. "That's not what President Liu said. She said that you alone negotiated with the general manager of Honghu, and that even though Honghu was initially interested in cooperating, they only planned to open a dozen stores to test the market, and they had no plans to open so many stores. It was only because you had the Honghu general manager under control that they agreed to the plan of opening 100 stores in 3 months." Gao Meichin handed over a cup of coffee and looked at Su Yang with appreciation. She has been busy preparing for the investment meeting today, and she is still wearing a professional skirt suit. Her simple and elegant white shirt reveals a small patch of fair skin, and she is wearing a hip-hugging skirt and flesh-colored stockings. She looks like a beauty. However, after meeting beautiful and stunning MILFs like Lu Rumei and Song Shuyuan, as well as the peerless beauty of his own strange biological mother, Su Yang doesn't feel anything special towards manager Gao. Therefore, he just took the coffee and smiled, "Thanks to manager Gao for introducing me, otherwise I wouldn't have this opportunity." "That's good, still not arrogant after a recent victory." Gao Meichin patted him on the shoulder and happily continued, "You've worked hard recently, so you should take a break for a couple of days. Just leave the investment promotion meeting to me, I've been told to take care of it by manager Liu. You also have an appointment with the general manager of Honghu, so you can't stand someone up." Chapter 54, Socializing by Imperial Decree. "Manager Gao, how can I use work time to do personal things? I can go on the date after the investment fair is over." Su Yang was a little between tears and laughter. "This is not considered personal business. Socializing with business partners is considered normal work, and we even reimburse you for the expenses." Gao Meichin flirted with a wink and a smile. Su Yang was about to say something when his phone happened to ring. He took it out and glanced at the caller ID. "Okay, manager Gao, I'll go socialize now as you command." Su Yang gave Gao Meichin a wry smile and waved his phone at her. Gao Meichin naturally saw the 3 words Song Yiming displayed on the screen, and said with a laugh, "As long as you can come back tomorrow night to attend the investment promotion meeting the day after tomorrow, I'll take care of the rest." Su Yang heard what she said, so he didn't stand on ceremony anymore. He got up to say goodbye and walked out of the door while answering the phone. "Manager Song, good good afternoon. Director Su, when are you coming back to Linen? You haven't forgotten our appointment, have you? Song Yamin's sexy voice came over the phone. Su Yang couldn't help but picture Song Yamin's charming figure in his mind. He smiled and said, how could I forget? I just arrived in Linen today. Where are you? I'll come find you. That's great. Come to Hangzhou. I'll be waiting for you at the company. No problem. I'll talk to you when we meet. Bye. Okay, bye. After hanging up the phone, Su Yang didn't want to be too narcissistic, but he always felt that his attraction to beautiful women seemed to have increased a lot compared to before. Or was it because he was now more confident than before? And the root cause of his increased self-confidence and self-assurance came from that strange adoptive mother. During this period of time, although Su Yang had been busy with work, he still thought of that noble and dignified figure when it was late at night and quiet, or when he was sending messages to Jiang Yao. I wonder how she's been recently. Su Yang felt inexplicably melancholy until the elevator door opened with a ding, at which point he shook his head and walked in, heading downstairs to his car and driving to Honghu Building. The New Century Grand Hotel was not far from Honghu Building, about a 20-minute drive. Before long, Su Yang arrived at the bottom of Honghu in his Maybach. Just as he took out his phone to call Song Yamin. But through the car window, he could already see Song Yamin walking straight towards him. I thought you were really going to stand me up. Song Yamin opened the passenger door, smiled and got in, her long, slightly curly hair swinging gently. Su Yang leaned over to look at her, smelling the fragrance drifting over, and laughed. Who would I dare to stand up, not even manager Song? You are the one who was important to my investment promotion work this time. When I first met Song Yamin, I was probably more attracted to her mother Song Shuyuan's mature elegance, which attracted more of Su Yang's attention. But when I saw her again, I couldn't help but marvel at having a mother like this, and as a daughter, Song Yamin is also a gorgeous beauty. She is tall with a pointed face, has a pair of long, snow-white legs, is wearing a pink floral dress, has a slender waist outlining a sexy curve, and her smiling mouth and watery eyes are very charming. Then can you stop calling me Manager Song? This isn't a formal work situation. Song Yamin fastened her seatbelt, leaned back in her seat, gave him a reproachful look, and her two long, slender thighs were pressed together tightly. Chapter 55, No Man Can Be Trusted. That's fine. Su Yang asked with a smile as he started the car, tilting his head. I just don't know what to call you, Song Yamin? Yamin? Or Xiaoman? Song Yamin burst out laughing, giggling repeatedly. You're still Xiaoman, you're even a year younger than me. I'm doing you a favor by not calling you Sister Min. Then I'll call you Yamin. Su Yang took the opportunity to take over, and then asked her, where should we go first? I don't know Linen well. Although his hometown is also a rural village in the south of the Yangtze River, he has never been to Linen before, and this business trip is the first time he has come here. The West Lake is quite beautiful this season, but let's go have dinner first. Song Yamin leaned over and extended her slender hand with a mix of red and pink nail polish, and entered the destination into the car's navigation system. Su Yang naturally had no objections, and as the guest, she followed her host's lead and let her make the arrangements. Linen Lu Wai Lu is considered an old brand in Linen and is one of the most famous Hangzhou cuisine restaurants. Located on the beautiful West Lake, it has a long history and has hosted many celebrities, heads of state and numerous foreign dignitaries. Of course, this was Su Yang's first time here, but looking at the bustling crowds outside, the business was really quite prosperous. If you're looking for somewhere to eat out of town and you're not familiar with the local area, it's best to pick a restaurant with a lot of customers. After all, good taste is the only way to get repeat customers. If the restaurant is quiet and even the locals don't go there, there's obviously a problem. Song Yamin had already booked a table in advance, so Su Yang parked the car and followed the waiter's instructions to a private room. The food in this restaurant is pretty good, especially the signature dishes here, such as West Lake vinegar fish, dongpa pork, longjing shrimp, and beggar's chicken. The flavors are all very authentic. I've brought friends here before, and I'll bring them here to try it. If there's anything you don't like, we can ask the waiter to bring something else. After Song Yamin had finished ordering, she poured tea for Su Yang while smiling and watching him introduce the dishes. It's fine, I'm not picky. Su Yang looked at her long, slender, and round legs under her skirt without saying a word, and then looked at her charming face and asked with interest, You usually call him your friend, but in fact he should be your boyfriend, right? You brought me here to eat, aren't you afraid that he will misunderstand? What boyfriend? Song Yamin raised her little fist and lightly smashed it on his shoulder, covering her red lips and laughing like a blooming flower. All my friends are girls. Well, besides, if I had a boyfriend, I wouldn't eat alone with the opposite sex. So you're quite considerate of your future boyfriend's emotions. Indeed, no man would feel at ease if a beautiful woman like you were to have dinner alone with the opposite sex. Su Yang quite appreciated her and said with a smile. Song Yamin pulled the chair over and sat down next to Su Yang, looking at him with watery eyes and asking in return, "What about your girlfriend? Won't she be jealous?" Su Yang couldn't help but think of Jiang Yao, but the two of them had not really established a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, so he pretended to be carefree and waved his hand. "Where would I get a girlfriend from? Otherwise, I would definitely introduce you to her." "That's a promise then. Next time you come to Linen, it will be almost the best time to eat hairy crabs from Yangqing Lake, and I'll treat you." Song Yamin giggled for a long time. Chapter 56, Strolling on the West Lake. The food they had just ordered was also served one after the other. Su Yang and Song Yamin chatted while eating, not discussing business but only topics between friends, and they got to know each other better. Song Yamin's mother, Song Shuyuan, got divorced when she was very young and brought up Song Yamin alone, so she has always taken her mother's surname since she was a child. She attended Seven Sisters College in the United States, one of the 7 traditional elite liberal arts colleges in the northeastern United States. These universities only admit female students and have trained many famous alumni. After graduating last year, she returned to China to help her mother manage the affairs of the Hanghu Group. Therefore, this cooperation with Jinsho Trading can also be considered a project that her mother has entrusted her with. Su Yang naturally did not hide her situation either, and except for the fact that she only recently learned that she has a strange biological mother, she told Song Yamin about it in general. Song Yamin did not change her attitude towards him just because he grew up in the countryside. Perhaps for her, who has plenty of material wealth, the feeling of getting along with each other is more important than the so-called matching of social status. In that case, we can be considered half-countrymen. Song Yamin smiled, picked up her teacup and took a sip. Her lips, painted with lipstick, were a little sexy. Sort of. Su Yang smiled slightly. To be honest, although he grew up in the rural Jiangnan area with his father, according to his own strange biological mother, shouldn't he also be considered a native of the Magic City? After dinner, it had already grown dark, and the lights were just beginning to come on. Linen, a city with both historical heritage and modern vitality, also showed a different charm, exuding a charming radiance. Su Yang and Song Yamin came out of the Lu Wai Lu, bought 2 cups of milk tea on the roadside, and then started a slow walk along the West Lake. For many people visiting Linen, the West Lake is an essential attraction. Over the years, the West Lake has almost become Linen's tourist calling card and cultural symbol. Especially now, it's not a holiday, so there aren't many tourists. The hustle and bustle of the day has gradually subsided, giving the West Lake a touch of grace and tenderness. Song Yamin, in order to show her hospitality, even chartered a painted junk and took Su Yang on a night cruise on the West Lake. "Gee, it's just the 2 of us on the boat. Aren't you afraid I'll kidnap you, you little rich girl?" Su Yang leaned over and looked at Song Yamin, who was leaning on the rail of the boat sipping milk tea, to scare her. The boat slowly sailed on the West Lake, with flashing neon lights and a gentle breeze. The unique charm of classic landscapes such as autumn moon on a calm lake and 3 pools mirroring the moon was illuminated by the lights. Song Yamin took her bag and giggled, "This is all I have on me. If you want it, I'll give it to you, just don't kidnap me, okay?" Su Yang laughed, "Then I'll wait until you go home and kidnap you again." The two gradually became familiar with each other and were able to exchange some small jokes. Men inherently have many desires, but many are suppressed by life. Su Yang had also become confident and composed due to his personal circumstances, and his personality had also changed somewhat. At least he no longer blushed like before when he spoke to Jiang Yao. Song Yamin's smile became more and more radiant, and she said with a smile, "You little brother has quite a lot of guts. Isn't it the case that you will come tonight at the full moon to take it?" Su Yang had naturally heard of this letter left by Chu Liuxiang when he tried to steal the White Jade Beauty, so he pretended to be surprised. "What you mean is, let me go to your house tonight and steal you away?" Chapter 57, Legend of the White Snake. "If you dare to come, my mother will break your legs." Song Yamin lifted her hair, which had been messed up by the lake breeze, and flirtatiously gave him a look. The lake breeze pressed against Song Yamin's skirt, accentuating her curvy figure. "Is Auntie Song really so fierce?" Su Yang pretended to be scared and took a sip of milk tea to calm down. Song Yamin looked at him with a smile. "Yes, my mother is good at handling energetic young guys like you." "You mean, I find that you are actually quite experienced in bed?" Su Yang looked at her with a changed expression. Song Yamin laughed. "Don't you want to get to know the real me?" "Of course I want to get to know the real you." Su Yang looked at her flirtatiously while sucking on his milk tea. I hate it. Sonyamin felt she was being molested and lifted her high heels to stomp on him. Su Yang quickly dodged. Sonyamin missed her target and let out a cry of alarm, her body involuntarily falling into his arms. Su Yang quickly reached out to hold her slender waist. It was surprisingly soft and smelled good. Ah! I'm sorry, I've wet your clothes. After Sonyamin regained her balance, she realized that the milk tea she was holding had spilled and drenched Su Yang. It's fine, it's hot, it'll dry in a minute. Su Yang unobtrusively released her slender waist, took a step back, and checked his situation. He had been doing investment promotion work for a while, and every day he wore a white shirt and casual Western-style trousers, so he had been so preoccupied with the beauty in his arms that he hadn't felt his white shirt had been permeated by the milk tea and turned brown. Sonyamin's charming face was slightly flushed, and it was obvious that she had just been hugged around the waist by the opposite sex for the first time and had bumped into his arms, so she was also a little embarrassed. However, she pretended to be calm and unconcerned, quickly rummaged in her bag and pulled out a silk-embroidered handkerchief, and went to wipe the milk tea from his chest, but it reflected the faint outline of Su Yang's pectoral muscles, making her blush even more. The emerald green waves of the West Lake were sparkling with neon lights, and the lake and mountain scenery complemented each other, as if stars were scattered among them. Boats came and went on the lake, reflecting the prosperity of both banks. The Leifong Pagoda, which had undergone vicissitudes for thousands of years, looked even more ancient and charming in the night. Su Yang, in order to avoid an awkward atmosphere, reached out and grabbed her handkerchief to wipe it himself, pointed at the Leifong Pagoda standing by the lake, and casually changed the subject and asked her, "Is the Leifong Pagoda in linen really suppressing Lady White Snake down there?" Sonyamin paused for a moment and giggled. "You really did ask the right person. Let me tell you, back in 1924, the Leifong Pagoda accidentally collapsed, but at that time there were no conditions for repairs. It wasn't until 2001, when the reconstruction of the Leifong Pagoda was underway, that an archaeological team came to seal off the area and conduct archaeological excavations. It was finally discovered that there was really a mystery hidden under the pagoda, and a huge stone door was found. Could there really be a white snake lady? Su Yang had just asked out of curiosity, but now he was really curious. Sonyamin continued with a smile. Whether there is a white snake lady depends on whether you believe it or not. Anyway, in the end, the archaeological team used lifting equipment to move the boulder, and what was found underneath was the entrance to a mysterious underground palace. Inside were many offerings of gold and silver, as well as a gilt bronze pagoda. Preserved in the heart of the pagoda was a Buddhist treasure, the Buddha's topknot, as well as many other precious cultural relics. And here comes the mystery. Inside one of the gold boxes was actually a sleeping little white snake. At that time, these archaeologists were shocked and did not dare to move the little white snake inside. They planned to bring it back to the museum intact, but in the end, the strange thing was that the little white snake actually disappeared, and there was no sign that the gold box had been opened. Some people say that the little white snake is the white snake spirit. Because the Leifong Pagoda collapsed and the archaeological team opened the seal of the boulder, it escaped from inside. Anyway, because of this incident, the Leifong Pagoda has become even more mysterious. Chapter 58, Why don't you come in and have a seat? Su Yang really didn't know about these things, and he was stunned as he listened. How come I've never heard of this before? You didn't make this up to trick me, did you? Sonyamin smiled and licked her red lips. Why would I lie to you? At the time, this incident was also on the news, and those cultural relics are now stored in the Jiangnan Provincial Museum. Su Yang looked at Sonyamin's rosy lips, which looked even more seductive in the night, like a snake demon. He widened his eyes in shock and said, "So you wouldn't be by Suzhen, would you? I don't know if the story is true or not, but as long as there is a reason to have fun, it will still be very happy." Sonyamin immediately changed to a charming and seductive expression, cooing, "Then you're not Su Xian, are you?" Su Yang shook his head, "No. I'm Fahai, and I'm going to capture you, you snake demon." Sonyamin smiled charmingly, glanced at his trousers, and licked her scarlet tongue around her lips again. "I'm just a weak mortal, master, don't catch me." "Wow. You still say you're not a snake demon? I'll summon the divine thunder and send you to the Leifong Pagoda." Su Yang pretended to raise his hands to the sky. Sonyamin's laughter shook the branches of the flowers, but she still kept up her act. "If you can summon the divine thunder, I'll call you brother." As soon as she finished speaking, the heavens cooperated, and a flash of lightning suddenly pierced the night sky, followed by a loud clap of thunder. Su Yang burst out laughing. "You snake demon, see, I have summoned the divine thunder. You don't want to go back to the Leifong Pagoda, do you?" Song Yamin couldn't stop laughing either, and kept patting his arm with her dainty hands. She did know that the weather forecast for Linen tonight was for rain, so it was obviously Su Yang's good fortune to have happened to encounter the thunder. It wasn't until the boat docked that the two of them reluctantly disembarked, leaving the Leifon pagoda behind, still exuding a unique ancient charm. Su Yang drove Song Yamin home, where she lived in a lakeside villa on the other side of the West Lake. This was considered the most luxurious, expensive, and best villa area in the entire Linen, and from the balcony you could overlook the entire West Lake. Su Yang followed the navigation system all the way to the front door of Song Yamin's villa. "Why don't you come in and have a seat?" Song Yamin unbuckled her seatbelt and looked at Su Yang with her snow-white legs leaning to the side. "Huh?" Su Yang was a little surprised. After all, inviting a member of the opposite sex into your home late at night is a pretty ambiguous gesture. Song Yamin naturally noticed this as well, her face turning slightly red, but she still pointed at the shirt he had spilled milk tea on. "Your shirt has been stuck with milk tea for too long and will be hard to wash. It's better if I have my maid wash and dry it for you before you go back." "That's fine." Su Yang didn't refuse, and drove the car directly into the parking lot. In fact, the company had already booked a luxury suite for him at the New Century Grand Hotel, which also came with laundry service, but since Song Yamin had said so, it would be inappropriate to refuse. However, after getting out of the car with Song Yamin, Su Yang couldn't help but look at her and ask, "If your mother sees me going home with you so late, she won't say anything, will she?" He wasn't worried about being alone with Song Yamin late at night, but he felt a little strange if he ran into Song Shuyuan at this time. Song Yamin's eyes flickered, glanced at him, and smiled. "It's fine, my mom went out to dinner with Aunt Lu and won't be back so soon." Su Yang was relieved and followed Song Yamin through the outdoor garden to her home. Chapter 59, A Man and a Woman Alone. The entire villa is decorated in the style of a Chinese luxury mansion, which not only restores the traditional architectural style of the old Jiangnan, but also combines a fashionable and comfortable spatial layout to show off its luxurious and elegant style. Song Yamin threw her bag on the cabinet by the entrance, bent down and took off her high heels. Su Yang happened to turn back and saw the charm of her backside pouting at him, so he quickly turned around and pretended to look at the decorations in the living room of the house. Song Yamin changed into her slippers, and then pulled out a pair from the closet and threw them at his feet with a smile. "We don't have any men's slippers at home, so these are my mom's spare pair. They don't fit you, but you'll just have to wear them for now." Su Yang didn't mind, and after taking off his leather shoes, he put on the slippers. They were a little small, though, and half of his ankle stuck out. "I guess her mom's feet are a size 38 at most. Take off your clothes first, I'll tell the maid to take them to the laundry." Song Yamin led him to the living room, with her back to Su Yang's long, slender, snow-white legs. Her feet were exquisite, and the toes of her slippers poked out, with a mix of red and pink nail art that made them look crystal clear. "Right here?" Su Yang's eyes widened slightly. It wasn't quite appropriate for a man and woman to be alone in the same room, and for him to undress in front of her. Moreover, this scene made him involuntarily recall that before, Jiang Yao had also barged into his room to dress him. But perhaps because of that experience, he was not embarrassed now. Besides, last time, he was only wearing his underwear, which was much better than now. "Are you still shy?" Song Yamin blinked her eyes and poured him a glass of water. Su Yang shrugged his shoulders. Since she didn't mind, what was there to be afraid of? He just stood there in the living room and took off his shirt in front of her. Song Yamin looked at Su Yang with his shirt off. Although he didn't have any abs or exaggerated muscles, the muscle lines of a young body made her feel a little flushed. "I didn't realize you had a pretty good figure." Song Yamin pretended to be calm as she handed him the glass of water and teased him with a smile. "In the eyes of you girls, I still have a pretty good figure." Su Yang was a little curious. Song Yamin put away her smile, gave him a serious look, and said, "You don't think that kind of muscle man would be very popular with girls, do you? In fact, it's just like you guys looking at those girls who have worked out and built up a lot of muscle. On the contrary, you don't find it aesthetically pleasing. So that's what it's like." Su Yang suddenly realized. Song Yamin tilted her exquisite mouth, winked her watery, flirtatious eyes and continued, "But it would definitely be better if you exercised a little more simply, without exaggerating. Some original muscle curves and a little abdominal muscle would be perfect." "Understood, I'll work out when I have time." Su Yang nodded. "Then I'll take the clothes to the maid to wash." Song Yamin took the shirt from him and glanced at his bare upper body again, giggling. "Why don't you go upstairs and take a shower and take off your pants and everything else to wash together? I can see that the milk tea stain is also stuck to the waistband of your pants." "That's fine." Su Yang also felt a bit uncomfortable with the sticky sugar on his body, so he didn't mind her. Song Yamin led him to the upstairs bathroom, and after he had taken off his pants and everything else, she took the dirty laundry basket and sent it to the maid's room next door together. This Chinese-style mansion naturally separates the main residence where the owner lives from the maid's room. If there is nothing to do, the maids will not come over casually, maintaining some privacy for the owner. Chapter 60. The rich just know how to enjoy themselves. This bathroom is really big, even bigger than my own room, right? Su Yang stood in the luxurious bathroom and surveyed it, especially the bathtub. It was more like a bathtub than a bathtub, and it could hold a person swimming doggy-style inside. This is the life of the rich, they really know how to enjoy themselves. Su Yang sighed, and without delay, she took a towel and went under the shower to start showering. Meanwhile, downstairs at the villa, a red Porsche was slowly pulling up. The car door opened and a slender, curvy leg wearing black stockings stepped out, wearing shiny high heels. Song Shuyuan got out of the car maturely and elegantly, wearing a halter dress. Her hot and voluptuous female body was supported by an amazing curve, and she was radiant. The sports car, light makeup, charming face, soft waist, plump figure, ultra-thin black stockings, and high heels all combined to create a noble and cool style. In particular, the plump and radiant glow that comes from a woman's experience of time has left her with a more pure and moving charm. Minner Nanny, you returned the car you borrowed from Su Yang so soon? Song Shuyuan glanced at the Maybach parked next to her, which was obviously the one she had borrowed from Su Yang before. However, she didn't care too much about it. She tapped her black high heels on the ground, taking seductive steps, and walked straight towards home. Minner. Song Shuyuan's snow-white, delicate hands supported her as she changed her shoes by the cabinet in the entrance hall. Her long, black, curly hair fell down as she shouted a sentence towards the living room. Her S-shaped, devilish curves fully outlined the charm of a mature woman. Where did this girl go? Song Shuyuan's pair of soft, shiny black silk feet stepped into her slippers, and she muttered, so she had to lazily stretch her waist and prepare to take a bath upstairs. From the large bathroom on the second floor came the sound of splashing water. She was taking a bath. Song Shuyuan laughed and shook her head, reached out and pressed the doorknob, and the bathroom door was pushed open without being locked. The large mirror, bathroom cabinet, and wet and dry separation design separated the bathtub from the shower. The shower area, separated by frosted glass, was filled with steam and the sound of running water. Only a vague figure could be seen taking a shower. Song Shuyuan occasionally took baths with her daughter, so she didn't call out to her. She casually closed the bathroom door, gathered up her long, beautiful, wavy hair, and began to take off her halter dress. Her movements were still so graceful and elegant, and even as she stood in front of the large mirror admiring her figure all by herself, she still exuded a mature woman's charm. There was not a single sign of childbirth on her snow-white, soft belly. It was flat and full of elasticity, and the long, diamond-shaped belly button that was deeply indented was also very beautiful. The rose water bath I used before seemed to have had a good effect. Song Shuyuan, wearing only her underwear, was sitting sideways on the large mirror table with her legs bent, unhooking her stockings and caressing her round, delicate thigh skin. She naturally treasures her body immensely, and even though only she and her daughter can appreciate it, she has never been careless about maintaining and caring for her body just because there is no man. Naturally, the beautiful body that has been raised in a wealthy family is even more delicate than many girls, and at the same time, it has a softness that is unique to a mature woman, exuding a soft light under the lighting.